It's been 20 years since I left Earth for that other world. Today, I'm going to take down the monster and save the world. Right then, flames erupted violently. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy exploded, blinding light swallowed the entire space, and an overwhelming pressure took over. Out of the darkness, a bestial silhouette appeared with glowing red eyes. A frenzied demonic beast emerged, its voice booming, "Still alive, you're a real hero, aren't you?" It mocked him, "But your teammates look like they're barely holding on." Upon hearing that, Hyen Seok replied with a sneer, "Looks like you aren't doing much better yourself." The frenzied demonic beast began to roar, "I'm going to shatter that shield." The frenzied demonic beast began to roar, "I'm going to shatter that shield." Then it unleashed a powerful slash that sent the surrounding earth and stone shattering. Meanwhile, Hyen Seok's teammates were working together to form a shield to fend off the demonic beast's attack. Radiant, threatening purple sparks crackled around the beast. "If you don't surrender, I will crush you." It began to fire a blast of purple energy forward. "This land is a kingdom built by my own teeth and claws." The streams of purple energy grew thicker and thicker as they headed straight for Hyen Seok, but he remained stony-faced. With sharp, fearless eyes, Hyen Seok swung his staff to counter the attack, throwing off a blinding light. He gripped the shaft of his staff tightly with both hands. Fierce flames erupted around Hyen Seok, and he said in a low voice, "Let's end this." A blinding burst of light flared up, and the orange-yellow radiance spread intensely. Hyen Seok narrowed his eyes in anger, bracing himself against the explosive light before him. A beam of golden energy shot out, tearing through the space with immense power. Hyen Seok activated his flame arts, causing the fire to roar high into the air as the smoke and flames exploded violently. Hyen Seok landed, the sheer force of it ripping apart the ground. He stomped his feet hard onto the ground, causing white shockwaves to ripple out around him. A bolt of fire slammed straight into the earth, shattering the ground into pieces. Two pairs of fierce, intense eyes locked onto each other. All around them, large boulders were pulverized. The frenzied demonic beast lunged to attack Hyen Seok. It raised its hand, revealing sharp claws, and slashed downward. But Hyen Seok quickly blocked the attack. The immense pressure forced him to slide backward. The frenzied beast laughed savagely, "That pathetic little hit won't even leave a scratch on me." Hyen Seok raised his hand, a flow of red energy swirling around him, and asked, "Pathetic, you say?" He swung his staff, and a powerful wave of energy blasted straight at the demonic beast. Hyen Seok said in a low voice, "That's more than enough to snap your arrogance in half." The demonic beast was completely engulfed in roaring flames. The helmet on its head clattered to the ground with a metallic sound. Half-burned and defeated, the beast collapsed to the ground, its voice still echoing. "To think there's someone in this world who would dare to stand up to me like this." Hyen Seok affirmed again, reiterating, "I am not from this world." The demonic beast raised its voice, "You keep saying all these confusing things. Fine, I'll fall here, but my body will be absorbed by the earth, and someday." As it said this, it suddenly froze, unable to believe its own eyes. It wondered, "Am I fading away?" Hyen Seok laughed, "What's wrong? Can't regenerate anymore." He explained, "The fire burning you is my unique ability. Hellfire isn't like normal fire that needs oxygen. It burns away abstract things like will, reason, and memories. You enjoyed regenerating through the centuries, didn't you? But it's all over now, because what's burning is your very existence." Hearing this, the demonic beast was shocked. "You mean my time is up? Even if I disappear from this place, you won't be remembered as a hero who saved the world?" It emphasized, "Those you call your teammates, they're just hoping you die here." Hyen Seok replied calmly, "I know." The demonic beast panicked, "You know." Suddenly, the saintess interrupted, "Lord Hero, don't listen to the monster's words." Hyen Seok evaluated them, starting with the saintess. "Even though she confessed her love, she actually hates an outsider like me to the bone. Every one of her actions had been calculated." He asserted that once the battle ended, they would purge the hero. Hyen Seok asked, "Saintess, did I say anything wrong?" Hearing that, the saintess's expression changed instantly. She pressed her lips together and her eyes went dark. Hyen Seok's voice continued to ring out, the other two are the same. He evaluated, the knight received a treasure from the emperor to kill me, a monster slayer. That cowardly king is just afraid of losing his throne. The knight gritted his teeth and growled, how dare you? Hyen Seok continued, the mage loves to experiment on people and hates me because I opposed the slave system. In other words, I've known since last year that you'd kill me once the beast was dead. Hearing that, the demonic beast spoke up, truly puzzled, hero, with the power to push me into a corner like this, you have enough strength to destroy this world. Hyen Seok's eyes held a flicker of sadness, because I want to go home. The demonic beast, slowly fading away, asked in confusion, go home. Hyen Seok's memories came flooding back. 20 years ago in 2005 on Earth, I was a 30-year-old office worker brought to this world by someone claiming to be a goddess. Please, chosen hero, save this world from the monsters. It's a common trope in novels, stories about ordinary people transported to another world. But the place I arrived in at that moment heard a voice crying out, please, save us. And that was the embodiment of the catastrophe. I tried everything to get back. But the voice of the goddess appeared then, you have only one choice, slay the monster and save the world. So, for 20 years I trained to fight. At that time, Hyen Seok had been blocked by 2 guards. Even a hero isn't allowed to just leave as he pleases, in his arms. Hyen Seok was carrying a baby, his voice desperate. I saved this child from the village, let me bring it in. But one guard yelled angrily, it's dying anyway, just leave it, a waste of medicine. That was when Hyen Seok realized how cruel this world was, abandoning the weak. But a bigger problem was that someone else was screaming in hopeless pain. A person wearing a white hat ordered, hold it down, cut its leg off before the infection spreads. Hyen Seok judged that the medical knowledge here was as primitive as the Middle Ages. He thought to himself, a minor infection and they jump straight to amputation. All the mages had gone to the front lines, so there was no one left to provide healing. Suddenly, a voice called out from the front, Lord Hero. A high priest asked, that child was captured by monsters, how did you find it? But even worse. A woman laughed mockingly, it must be possessed by a demon to have survived. We'll perform an exorcism, we're already doing it to a few others. The woman asked him, you wouldn't dare defy heaven, would you? Right then, Hyen Seok realized that this disgusting world had no concept of human rights. If you want to save it, stop being so needlessly kind. Hyen Seok shouted in anger, I've completed the mission, keep your promise to me. At that moment the red sky cracked open, revealing beams of light. A patch of light grew stronger, shining down with blinding brilliance. The goddess appeared, smiling as she said, you've worked hard, hero, you've finally slain the monster. Hyen Seok pointed upward, hey, goddess, remember, you said if I killed the monster all my memories, experience, and even my soul would be returned intact to Earth. The goddess began to threaten him, you really don't like this world, do you? Even if you have the power to threaten me, every achievement you've made will disappear. Hearing that, Hyen Seok let out a helpless laugh. He roared, stop acting, don't worry because I'm leaving. The goddess said in a low voice, there are no monsters left in this world now, but... She clasped her hands together, will you not regret this? Hyen Seok immediately dropped the staff he was holding. I only want one thing, to return to the world I know. His staff hit the ground with a clatter, that was it. Hearing his demand, the goddess made her decision, very well. Hyen Seok's hand began to fade away, disgusting world, goodbye. Right at that moment, a massive beam of light shone directly onto Hyen Seok. The goddess's voice echoed, your original body has disintegrated on Earth. I will place your soul into a new one. Hyen Seok asked groggily, whose body? The goddess replied, I cannot provide details, but it is a body near death, though you will still be able to survive. Hyen Seok's body gradually faded away. As long as he could return to Earth, even if it were a dying body, it didn't matter. No matter how harsh the fate, it would still be happier than the memories of this place. Returning to Earth, dim lights illuminated the room. A man lying on the bed asked loudly, did I make it back? In 2025 on Earth, the hero Hyen Seok's soul had entered the body of an ordinary person named Yu Chan Seok. Right then Yu Chan Siok sat up and cursed, "You bastards from the other world. From now on, I never have to see your treacherous faces again." He looked in the mirror, his eyes flashing with surprise. "I'm a person on Earth now." Yu Chan Siok hugged the mirror overjoyed. "I really made it back. Earth." He turned the faucet on, laughing with delight. "Clean, unpolluted water, now that is magic. Get lost, you mages." Then Yu Chan Siok turned on the gas stove. "Just press a button and you get fire. From now on, I don't have to chop wood or start a campfire anymore." Suddenly, he was captivated by the aroma coming from a paper box. "I've missed everything so much." Yu Chan Siok stared at the box of fried chicken and drooled. "This is fried chicken, right?" He gently picked up a piece of fried chicken with his hand. His eyes sparkled, and Yu Chan Siok dove into eating the pile of fried chicken. His whole body trembled as he cheered with joy. "This is delicious enough to make me cry. This is what you call food." Suddenly, tears welled up in Yu Chan Siok's eyes. "I missed this so much." Finally, everything was starting to return to a normal life. First things first, I need to adapt. What, 2025, is time running parallel to that other world? Whatever, it doesn't matter. No matter how hard it gets, nothing will be as terrible as that world. Inside the bathroom, water flowed down from the shower head. Chan Siok stood under the spray, enjoying it. Hot water came out instantly. With just the push of a button, cool air blew in. The sky was blue and cloudless. He pressed his hand against the glass window and looked down. This was the life he knew, far removed from that smelly, wretched world. While Chan Siok was talking to himself, a bizarre face appeared. "It's 2025 already. Where should I start? Maybe play some StarCraft first?" He turned to look, then jumped in shock and let out a loud scream. Chan Siok looked up and asked, "What the hell is that?" A mechanical sound blared as the glass announced to all residents. "A breach hole is currently appearing in the residential area." He turned his head to look behind him. What is a breach hole?" The voice continued, ordering residents to quickly move to the shelter. "I repeat." Chan Siok was confused, his face panicked. "What the hell is going on? What is all this?" His eyes looked out the window and landed on something unclean. Piles of monsters with terrifying faces were clinging to the window glass. Their sharp nails pressed hard, causing the glass to shatter under the pressure. Outside, the hallway was dark and quiet. Suddenly, the door was kicked open by Chan Siok as he bolted outside. He ran while glancing back over his shoulder. "What the hell is going on?" The crowd came charging like madmen toward Chan Siok. Has Earth suddenly turned into something like this? He ducked out of a window. The monsters didn't seem to notice and just kept walking up the stairs. As soon as they were out of sight, Chan Siok climbed up from the window ledge. He poked his head out to look, breathing a sigh of relief. "Glad I got out of there." Chan Siok saw a young boy loitering nearby. There was a kid. When Sung Ah saw him, he asked, "Oh, a survivor?" Chan Siok walked over, worried. "It's dangerous here. Get to the shelter quickly." The boy didn't listen and looked around nervously. "Did you see any monsters around here?" Sung Ah said calmly, "I'm planning to kill it. Do you want to come along?" Chan Siok frowned in disbelief and asked back, "What did you say?" "They say Earth has been like this for about 13 years now. It's a disaster." He insisted on not going to the shelter, and Chan Siok didn't have the heart to leave him behind. There were even breach holes older than the kid himself, so he had to take the boy with him. He spoke up first. "If what you say is true, then that breach hole is a portal for monsters. Does no one know when, where, or how it appeared?" Sung Ah answered quickly, "Yeah, that's right." Chan Siok's expression turned dark instantly. "I clawed my way back from hell to Earth. Who would have thought Earth had turned into hell too?" "Are you messing with me, you crafty goddess?" The boy suddenly looked over and asked, "But how come you don't know anything?" He jumped, quickly making up an excuse. I just came back from living in the US." That made Sung Ah even more suspicious. Why? The US president was impeached because he tried to bring his daughter to Korea, and YouTube says you can't go back to Korea anyway. What is he talking about? Chan Siok, sensing the tension, quickly steered the conversation elsewhere. "Oh, by the way, are you a hunter? What was your name again?" The young boy replied with a bright, enthusiastic smile. "Lee Si-yoon." I belong to the Janabi Guild, ranked M globally. My main weapon is a longsword, and I'm currently handling a rift breach at. Chan Siok felt a wave of relief wash over him, grateful to have dodged the question. But wait, normal humans fighting monsters, is this just like the other world? How could something like that even be possible? Sung Ah's voice rang out, catching Chan Siok off guard, especially when he mentioned how great that longsword was. Before the boy could finish his sentence, Chan Siok clamped a hand over his mouth. Hey, there's a killer clip of Lee Si-yoon on YouTube, want to watch it? Chan Siok ducked into a corner, thinking to himself, damn, this is bad. Outside, a pack of monsters was prowling, looking for prey. There were monsters out there, quite a few in fact. 6 of them to be exact. Well, no, counting the guy hiding here, it's 6. Thankfully, this body had above-average muscle mass, and since he was used to fighting multiple enemies, he was going to be just fine. But what was he supposed to do with this kid? Leaving him alone would definitely lead to trouble. What happened to your resolve to kill monsters, kid? While Chan Siok was deep in thought, a stream of light suddenly radiated from somewhere. What was he supposed to do without a decent weapon? Below his feet, a band of light was pulsing and expanding. Wait a second, the air here was completely saturated with magic power. He was sure of it, it was exactly like what he'd seen in that other world. In that case, a stream of black energy shot out, touching the face of a nearby monster. It was instantly corroded, letting out a painful, distorted shriek. He reached his hand forward, light enveloping Chan Siok's palm, even though his 20 years of accumulated magic power were gone. He smirked to himself, thinking that if the air contained magic, he could still use the heaven-defying flames engraved on his soul. The fire is weaker than before, though, isn't it? The monster's head fell to the ground and slowly dissolved, but that was enough for now. Sung Ah, standing next to him, shouted with excitement, "Whoa, Hyung, you're so cool." The boy's eyes lit up. I thought you didn't know anything, so I was a bit suspicious. I never expected you to have a unique attribute. Chan Siok rubbed his head sheepishly and laughed. As long as you're not hurt, that's all that matters. Is that what they call a unique attribute? Sung Ah suddenly bolted toward the monsters. Oh right, I have to confirm this on the Hunter Academy's official YouTube channel. Chan Siok chased after him, yelling, "Hey, be careful." Before Chan Siok's words could even sink in, the heaven-defying flames flared up. A monster burst out of the black smoke, but the flames would not go out until the target was completely dead. A spray of red blood erupted, staining the entire area around them. Sung Ah was trembling, his eyes welling up with tears. "You brat." Chan Siok's hand, which had grabbed the monster, was covered in blood, even though he didn't really know what YouTube was. Chan Siok stood in front of him, his expression gentle, though he figured the kid should probably stop watching that stuff. He continued asking, "Can you lend me that stick?" Sung Ah finally snapped out of his shock. "Oh," the boy obediently handed the stick to Chan Siok. "Here you go, Hyung." The monsters that hadn't been completely burned to a crisp lunged from all directions, surrounding them both. His gaze swept over them, cold and indifferent. He lashed out with continuous strikes, sending blood splattering everywhere. Chan Siok wove through all the monsters. Everywhere he passed was left stained in dark crimson blood. Sung Ah's eyes widened, as if he were witnessing something unbelievable. The boy stuttered, "That's insane. Are you actually a hunter in disguise?" He didn't answer, just stood there catching his breath. It really is true, even back on Earth, he still had to smell the stench of blood. He just wanted to rest in peace after all his suffering. Who would have thought this world would be no different from the last one? Inside the shelter, everyone was gathered together, chatting and laughing loudly. The door slowly creaked open, an abrasive sound echoing through the space. Chan Siok walked in, grumbling under his breath, "So, I'm not calling you a little brat anymore, I'm calling you a little kid." Sung Ah followed behind him, holding the stick. "Are you picking on elementary schoolers, Hyung?" A woman saw them both and gasped, "Yoon Sung Ah." With a worried expression, she hugged the boy and asked, "Was it you who brought Yoon Sung Ah back? Thank you so much. You must have had a hard time with this stubborn child." "Mom, he doesn't understand anything." He scratched his head and replied, "Ah, yes, no problem." Chan Seok noticed the designer earrings and expensive clothes on Sung Ah's mother and thought to himself, so he's a rich kid. No wonder. Suddenly, a powerful tremor shook the ground, leaving everyone there in a panic. A giant hand punched through the shelter's entrance, collapsing it. A loud crashing sound rang out, and everyone looked outside in terror. The monster opened its mouth and let out a roar in its own language. The crowd panicked and scattered. The shelter collapsed. Everyone started running. Sung Ah, looking a bit terrified, turned to Chan Seok. "Hyung, let's just run for it this time. We can't beat that thing." He stood there, lost in thought. He wasn't asking for much, was he? Chan Seok's arm trembled. He just wanted to return to the world he knew, to return to his beloved homeland. He gripped his palm so hard he drew blood. Is that dream really too much to ask for? Chan Seok spoke softly. "Little brat Sung Ah," he teased, only to have the boy uncomfortably retort, "I told you not to call me that." He ignored him and continued, "You're a rich kid, so why do you want to be a hunter? Can't you just stay somewhere safe? There's no need to fight." The boy obediently listened to everything Chan Seok had to say. "I lost my dad to a monster." The rift breach appeared right inside the shelter, a place that was supposed to be safe. "That's when I realized that there is no safe place in this world. So even though I'm not as strong as you, and even though I'm still afraid of monsters, I will become the strongest hunter." Sung Ah suddenly shouted at the top of his lungs, "I'll wipe out every single rift breach and save this world." "That's a pretty foolish dream for someone like me, right?" Chan Seok suddenly smiled. "No, you'll make an excellent hunter." After saying that, he stepped forward, even if he couldn't save the world. The mother standing nearby hugged the boy. "Yoon Sung Ah, no, let's go." Sung Ah wouldn't give up and tried to run to Chan Seok. "Wait, Hyung." A sudden, cold gust of wind blew in, forcing the two of them, who were struggling, to freeze in place. Sung Ah quickly turned his head to look behind him. The little boy's eyes widened in astonishment. Standing before them was Chan Seok, his hand touching the massive monster. "Because doing that is my job." Sung Ah's eyes shimmered as he looked at him. "Save the world." Chan Seok tilted his head and smiled kindly. "Since I've done it before, I'm sure I can do it better than you." After 20 years of slaying monsters in another world and returning to Earth, I hadn't even managed to enjoy my freedom before I was faced with a rift breach. Luckily, thanks to the experience from my past life, I survived, and after promising the kid I'd save the world. Chan Seok sat in front of his monitor, biting on a water bottle. "I'm not doing anything, really." He was playing a game on his computer. A game over screen popped up. "Ah." Chan Seok pulled the bottle away, his eyes still fixed on the screen. "So that's how it is. This is way too easy." He reached out and grabbed a cold can of soda. "Whoever saved the world before is obviously going to be better at this. What the hell is going on?" Even though I made such a passionate declaration in front of everyone, my intention to save the world didn't last very long. In the other world, I used to dream about games, delicious food, and convenient systems that only required a single touch to finish a task. Besides, other hunters are already taking care of saving the world, so whatever. Chan Seok picked up his phone and wondered to himself, maybe I should just order some food. Just the subsidy, the job is already done. The original owner of this body, Yu Chan Seok, used to be an employee at a logistics company but lost his job due to the rift breaches. Now the subsidy was running dry and I was looking for a new job, but he buried his face in his hands. There's no such thing as a normal hearing process anymore. Chan Seok lay dejectedly on the table. The constant appearance of rift breaches had caused most companies to go bankrupt. That makes sense. To live in modern society, you need a job, but companies only hire people with experience. He lay next to the glowing phone screen. "But hey, I've got experience, don't I?" In the area where the Hunter Association stood, there was a towering skyscraper. The people coming and going were buzzing with excitement. "Oh my God, I've become a hunter. I'm just taking the exam, but I'm so excited." Entrance exams these days are just a formality. You just need to show a unique attribute and you're in. A pair of indifferent eyes swept over them, just a bunch of cookie-cutter weirdos all the same. A figure walked proudly into the crowd. What if I end up becoming too famous? Anyway, in this batch, we're definitely going to. The sentence was cut short as he panicked at the person in front of him. Who the hell is that? Is that Lee Si-yoon? Lee Si-yoon, the Janabi Guild. The person walking in the middle was Lee Si-yoon, a global top 100 hunter and a member of Janabi. The gossip-hungry crowd quickly began whispering. I thought she went off to clear a rift breach somewhere. Did Janabi really send her here to scout? Who is she here to watch? She held her phone, scrolling through everyone's profiles. Graduate Hansang awakened electric shock ability. Lee Si-yoon rested her chin on her hand and asked indifferently, she can recharge batteries, right? The bodyguard next to her quickly waved his hand, replying, she's not a generator, she's a hunter candidate. She has good control over her ability, so she might be useful. Her remark left him frozen. Maybe, maybe not, huh? A sudden scream rang out, startling the bodyguard. If you want to hunt rift monsters, you need real combat experience. Whoa, scared me. The other bodyguard added excitedly, even if they stand out at the academy, many people don't perform well in real-world scenarios. Lee Si-yoon, satisfied, pulled out a piece of candy and handed it to him. That's what I mean. Come on, let's go hunting. Thanks for the compliment. Lee Si-yoon pondered, practice is completely different from real combat. Can kids who are only used to safe training handle the field? Hansang is going to need a long time to adapt. She sat in the stands looking down. The team leader knows that, so even though I've been absent for a week, the announcer's voice boomed. Dear hunters, please begin the first match right now. She looked down with a bit of interest. Regardless, she had to finish her assigned task, so she just had to raise her own value so they would want to scout her. The announcer reached out to adjust the mic. Oh, this candidate is interesting. He's a civilian, not a graduate from the academy. There has never been a precedent for this. I wonder what he's relying on to stand on this stage. Candidate Yu Chan-seok stepped out, looking a bit flustered. I'm still not used to this new name. The MC's voice rang throughout the arena. I'd like to announce the match rules. No personal weapons outside of association equipment are allowed. Serious injury or life-threatening actions are prohibited. Chan-seok looked at his opponent with a serious expression. Since he had decided to be a hunter, first, save this world that's on the verge of ruin. While he was lost in thought, his opponent spoke first. Second, live a life of luxury. That's absurd. Chan-seok ignored him and kept his thoughts to himself. To achieve that, he had to perform well in this tournament first. The announcer shouted, both candidates, take your positions. He raised his hand high, took a deep breath, and as soon as his hand dropped, his opponent immediately lunged forward. The battle began and the guy laughed deviously. Am I really fighting someone who hasn't accumulated a single drop of magic power? Facing that intense energy, Chan-seok stood still, calm and composed. You should consider it an honor to lose to me. The guy's face was filled with triumph and malice, and suddenly flames erupted around his body. I am the undefeated Spear King of the Academy. No matter how intense his aura was, his eyes remained indifferent, not wavering in the slightest. The tip of his spear slammed into the ground. A metallic clang echoed as it struck the floor. The guy who had been pointing his spear forward froze. What the hell is this? His face displayed pure disbelief. It disappeared. Suddenly, a voice whispered in his ear. Hey, Chan-seok lunged from the right. Your spear technique is pathetic. He delivered a punch to his opponent's stomach before he could even block. Chan-seok then stomped hard on his opponent's foot. And then he landed a devastating uppercut to his face. The continuous barrage of strikes left his opponent unable to defend himself, and he fell backward due to his own momentum. Chan-seok was stunned and quickly said, Hey, wait, is it already over? I thought using a spear would be too likely to cause injury, so I used my bare hands, but... His skill level really was surprisingly amateur. He just hoped this wasn't the average level for hunters around here. Lee Si-yoon's eyes lit up immediately as she looked at him. Who is that guy? She opened his file to look again. He used to work in logistics, that's what they say, the bodyguard next to her whispered. There is almost zero magic power in his body. Usually to achieve that kind of strength, you need a long time to accumulate power. This result just proves he's just lucky. Lee Si-yoon tossed a piece of candy at him, chewing on her own to keep her mouth shut. She thought for a moment and then said, "You can tell just by looking. That's actually not the case. He's intentionally not using his magic power, you know that, right?" Chan Seok rubbed the back of his neck, suspicious. "How could that be? Even though I was fighting half-heartedly, it was enough to prove my ability. Maybe I should end this for sure this time." The guy was sitting on the floor, holding his face. "How could you?" He raised his fist and reassured him, "Don't worry, that wasn't a fatal wound." The guy immediately cowered in fear, raising his hands to shield himself. A loud thud rang out in the noisy arena, and the guy collapsed on the ground, his eyes rolling back in his head as he lost focus. Whispers began to spread. "What? The winner is candidate Yu Chan Seok." Lee Si-yoon glanced sideways. The group of people there were whispering to each other incessantly. She thought for a moment, then stood up abruptly and said, "While they're busy playing on their computers, I need to take action. I want to see his true strength." The bodyguard turned back to look at her and asked, "Where are you going?" Lee Si-yoon smiled and replied, "I need to see the head of the association." In the following matches, Chan Seok thought to himself while fighting, "They're so weak. Even if they're new hunters, how can they be this weak?" The more he fought, the more they seemed like a bunch of mediocre people. He took down an armed opponent with a single strike. What on earth does the academy even teach? Despite going through many rounds, Chan Seok didn't feel a hint of fatigue. Is there really no one decent here? White hair appeared, swaying lightly in the air. The people above exclaimed, "Oh, so cute, I finally got to meet him." A girl carrying a sword stepped out. "Here comes Han Sang-ah, the finalist. Can she stop the rookie's advance?" Chan Seok tilted his head, about to say something. "Oh, at least you." Before he could finish, she let out a sigh of contempt. "So you're the one who accumulated the most mana today, huh?" Han Sang-ah retorted, "And you have nothing. You only made it this far by luck, you can't go any further." He rubbed his head calmly and said, "Do they teach these cookie-cutter lines at the academy too?" Chan Seok finally drew his weapon, but since it looked like he was just using his bare hands, it probably didn't count as anything unique. Lightning flashed in her eyes, "But I won't hold back." His face looked incredibly amused. Thanks, unique, I've got that, but if I actually use it, you guys are going to get hurt." As soon as the signal sounded, Han Sang-ah took a deep breath to prepare, ready. The moment the signal was called, blinding electricity began to spark around her as the battle started. Han Sang-ah's hand, gripping the hilt of her sword, was also shrouded in light and electric currents. Chan Seok's eyes widened for the first time, as if he had finally met a worthy opponent. Han Sang-ah's eyes turned stark white as she kicked off the air, launching herself forward. Just as she was lunging, she suddenly faltered for a second. Before she could even land the slash, he had already backflipped into midair to dodge it. She stood there stunned, thinking to herself, he dodged it, he actually jumped over the electric strike. Interesting, using magnetism on the scabbard and the blade to create a propulsion force like a railgun when drawing the sword, huh? He landed on the ground and used one hand to balance himself. "Well, it's true you're the strongest here, but you missed something important." Han Sang-ah asked in confusion. "What?" Chan Seok explained meticulously, "Your attacking strategy is too focused on speed." Han Sang-ah's mistake was creating a magnetic rail in the air to accelerate the sword when drawing it. He smirked and continued, "No matter how fast or strong you are, who would just stand there and let you hit them when the trajectory is that obvious?" She looked like she'd been silenced, unable to say another word. "Don't you?" Han Sang-ah yelled angrily, "I can still win without using that skill." Chan Seok lunged forward with a mocking tone, "Are you stupid? I even dodged your fastest attack." She didn't care and continued to pour all her strength into her strikes. Yet he still dodged them calmly. "I'm trying too hard. I'm overexerting my mana. If I keep this up, my body going to break." Chan Seok stood before Han Sang-ah completely unscathed. "That was pretty impressive, but let's stop here." He flashed a smile, but his words cut like a knife. "If it hurts, just raise your left hand, okay?" Without a moment's hesitation, Chan Seok punched her hard in the stomach. Han Sang-ah couldn't block in time and was hit so hard she gagged on her own saliva. He pulled his arm back from her stomach. He got back into a fighting stance, ready to strike again. A barrage of punches was unleashed and she couldn't block a single one, forced to take them all. Chan Seok raised his arm high, preparing his final move. The strike was so powerful that the surrounding dust was blown away by the wind. Sang-ah stood there with a dazed expression from the beating, her nose bleeding. She collapsed onto the arena floor. Before the eyes of everyone, the crowd looked completely bewildered. No way, Han Sang-ah, the academy's top student, was overwhelmed. Where did this guy even come from? Chan Seok turned around and casually massaged his shoulder. Even though she's superior to the others, if she collapses at this level, it must be because she relied too much on mana and neglected her physical training. He let out a breath and looked back. You planning on continuing? Han Sang-ah's hand slowly began to rise. Her arm was trembling uncontrollably, but she still tried to lift it. The words from earlier echoed in Chan Seok's mind. If it hurts, raise your left hand. He smiled to himself. She actually raised it. Suddenly, someone appeared out of nowhere and ran toward the MC. The presenter asked in confusion, "What is it?" The person said something that made the MC jump up and shout, "Announcement, there has been a change to the tournament schedule. Champion Yu Chan Seok is requesting a short break." He heard this and wondered, a break, isn't it over yet? The presenter continued, following that, a special match will take place between the champion Yu Chan Seok and an incumbent hunter. What? This is by special permission of the guild master. We ask for the audience's enthusiastic support. The bodyguards heard this and sweat poured down like rain, so she's still determined to do it. Chan Seok stood below, looking up as the name of his opponent appeared on the screen. The audience's reaction showed this was a hunter of real caliber. A special match, huh? Want to test my abilities? Every world is the same. The sound of a sword dragging against the floor echoed. Yu Chan Seok, right? Her long hair fluttered as Lee Si-yoon walked forward. Sorry for the sudden appearance, but this is the only way to test your true potential. She held her massive sword and introduced herself. I am Lee Si-yoon of Janabi. The arena from before seemed too cramped. Fight me, Yu Chan Seok. If it's too much, you can decline. I understand how sudden this is. He was a bit shocked himself, thinking, Lee Si-yoon, a global class M-rank hunter. Furthermore, her presence and demeanor weren't just bluster. This was peak strength. Even with a weapon, it would be hard for him to compete with his current body. Chan Seok regained his composure and smiled, but he spoke up unexpectedly. Fine, let's fight. The presenter was panicked right now. Chan Seok explained, actually, I haven't used much of my strength until now, so maybe now I can show you something. Lee Si-yoon slightly curled her lip in a teasing smile. You running low on energy? He didn't answer immediately but thought to himself, I have to fight anyway. Meeting her now is actually a good thing. I'll achieve the best results in this tournament. She was the perfect opponent for him to accomplish that. Let's see. Chan Seok gripped his spear and said, should I raise my own value a little bit? At this moment, everyone looked forward in surprise. The commentator's expression also looked incredibly grim. Lee Si-yoon's palm gripped her weapon tightly as she rushed forward. Chan Seok immediately used his blade to block her attack. He gritted his teeth. How does a woman's body have this kind of terrifying strength? As soon as that thought passed, Chan Seok's arm countered. Lee Si-yoon lost her momentum and quickly returned to her original position, her sharp eyes staring at her opponent. Compared to the beginning, her speed had clearly slowed down. Chan Seok panted heavily, thinking, it's not that she has no openings, but my current physical strength isn't enough to take advantage of them. Suddenly, Lee Si-yoon chuckled. I thought I'd finally get a warm-up after all these days, but it looks like you're already exhausted, huh? You did well anyway. I thought you'd only last 5 minutes. As she finished, she slowly stepped to the side. She immediately charged with her weapon. He didn't expect it to last for 30 minutes. Rest now. Chan Seok's palm was still gripping his weapon tightly as he retreated. He had stored up quite a bit, and the amount of mana in the air was scarce. He bowed his head, his breathing ragged in his chest. Chan Siok thought to himself, although I don't want to use it, I guess I have to. With that thought, he regained his calm. Hellfire. Lee Si-yoon, who was leaping high into the air, suddenly froze. Without a moment's hesitation, she slammed her weapon directly into the ground. Chan Siok quickly jumped out of the way, emerging from the dense smoke. Lee Si-yoon smirked, thinking, that was definitely a fatal blow. How could he possibly dodge it? Chan Siok stood there suddenly stunned, his clothes tattered. What was that? His face slowly lifted with a dark aura surrounding him. Hellfire. It's a special skill I used constantly before returning to Earth, and it's my most reliable power. Unlike normal fire, you can tell since my clothes are still intact, this flame doesn't burn physical matter. Instead, each flame uses the abstract concepts I specify as fuel. At my current output, I can't burn things with a high ignition point like will, memory, or reason. His bare feet immediately lunged forward, so what I'll burn this time is. Lee Si-yoon kept her cold demeanor and backed away. Getting faster, aren't you? In a flash, his blade struck with powerful lethality, fueled by her fatigue. Lee Si-yoon startled, gritting her teeth and glaring, you've recovered already. She immediately countered with a flurry of attacks against Chan Siok. Lee Si-yoon thought, what is this? The mana density in the air keeps fluctuating, even though the arena settings haven't changed. Then, could it be? Chan Siok looked ahead blankly. Just as normal fire releases heat when burning matter, hellfire also releases mana when burning abstract concepts. Using mana to maintain hellfire, then hellfire burning my fatigue to generate mana. His feet hurriedly dashed forward. It really is an endless cycle. Lee Si-yoon was leaping high into the air with eyes blazing. In other words, my skill is her own weapon. In the blink of an eye, it created a dense cloud of smoke around them. Lee Si-yoon's eyes were filled with determination as she spoke, still want to continue. But Chan Siok didn't seem to have any intention of giving up right now. It's a persistent pursuit tactic. He slowly tilted his head and smiled. You've still got the energy to keep playing. By the way, do you like boys who cling like leeches? Lee Si-yoon was agitated and quickly replied, no, I hate them to the bone. Thoughts continued to appear in Chan Siok's mind. Burning wood leaves ash, and once it's burned completely, it can't be burned anymore. Hellfire also leaves behind similar residues. If everything is burned down to just ash, hellfire will disappear. Lee Si-yoon slowly lifted her watch and said loudly, 4 hours and 17 minutes. She looked down. You've lasted a long time. Do you still want to keep going? Chan Siok clutched his face and whined, stop, please have mercy on me. An announcement immediately sounded. Contestant Yu Chan Siok forfeits, Hunter Lee Si-yoon wins. As she finished, Lee Si-yoon slowly pulled a candy from inside her jacket. Everyone in the stands was cheering excitedly. The hunter won. Lee Si-yoon smiled brightly and said, here, you did well, take this and my business card too. Chan Siok looked down at the business card in his hand. Janabi, a team of 3 partner hunters. Lee Si-yoon smiled and waved, we'll talk details later, just call me first. The final announcement was made. We officially declare the hunter selection finished. Winner Chan Siok, please come to the podium to receive your award. He stood below, still thinking Janabi is a hunter organization. Right then, Chan Siok was trying to enjoy the candy from Lee Si-yoon. He focused intently on his phone screen. This phone has a hunter license. Look at this technology, and I only got a license. Hunter community, second-hand market for monster items, urgent association notifications, text messages, and military satellite calls. He slowly lifted his face. There's everything in the world here. Suddenly, a voice cut in. Hunter Yu Chan Siok, right? Seeing you in person is even more impressive than on camera. Chan Siok politely extended his hand. He's really tall, probably over 2 meters. Yes, but you are, Sung Hyan said in a low voice. Here is my business card. He muttered, partner hunter Silver Corpse Yoon Sung Hyan. He interrupted, exactly, partner hunter of the Silver Corpse team. Let's keep it short. Join the Silver Corpse team, specifically my squad. Accumulate enough experience under my command and you will shine. Chan Siok was still intently watching Sung Hyan's expression. It didn't seem like a scam. Suddenly, he remembered Lee Si-yoon's words, "Here's my number, call me." Chan Seok said awkwardly, "Someone already invited me first, so I can't promise right now. I need to think about it before I decide." Sung Hyun laughed loudly, "You thought I'd force you to answer right now." Suddenly, his hand was placed on Chan Seok's shoulder. But Sung Hyun slowly leaned in and whispered, "You should consider it carefully." He turned away in a hurry, calling out, "See you later." Chan Seok stood there, eyes wide as he stared at Sung Hyun's retreating back. "Forget about the silver core, I guess." Lee Si-yoon answered her phone politely. "Hello, Lee Si-yoon speaking." The person on the other end quickly continued, "This is you, Chan Seok. Where should I go?" She replied, "The second floor of the Gwancheon Association building. Let me text you the address." He arrived at the Gwancheon Association shortly after. A staff member smiled brightly, saying, "Welcome to Gwancheon, sir." Lee Si-yoon turned and waved, "You got here fast, come on, have a seat." Chan Seok slowly approached. "That's an odd name for a cafe, isn't it?" She continued, "Is everything all right?" He sat down across from her. "Someone came to invite me to a guild, a big guy." Chan Seok emphasized, "It was Yoon Sung Hyun from the Silver Corps." Lee Si-yoon chuckled. "If Yoon Sung Hyun came to scout you himself, no other guild would dare approach you." He bowed his head slightly, smirking. "So, is Janabi the same?" She lowered her voice, I have no intention of inviting you, though." Chan Seok was surprised. "What then, why?" Lee Si-yoon continued, "Why not stay out of the guilds and work independently, like a freelancer?" Resting his chin on his hand, he thought to himself, "So I don't need to join a guild." She lowered her voice again. "Yoon Sung Hyun was probably planning to bring you in as a junior." Chan Seok paused. "A junior? What's a junior position and what's a partner hunter?" Lee Si-yoon nodded. "Ah, right, you didn't graduate from the academy, did you?" Guild hunters are usually divided into 3 levels: juniors, seniors, and partners. Juniors and seniors belong to a team led by a partner, basically like salaried employees. Partner hunters don't receive a salary but hold shares in the guild, similar to small business owners. They share the profits the guild earns. Chan Seok began to understand. "Sounds like a law firm." Lee Si-yoon nodded. "Exactly. I heard the hunter who founded the first guild got their inspiration from a law office." You don't necessarily have to join a guild and climb from junior to senior, and then to partner. He smiled. "I see. If I get famous and have impressive achievements, they'll come looking for me themselves." Lee Si-yoon looked excited. "Exactly." Chan Seok frowned, confused. "But why are you so pushy about me hunting?" "But I don't have the connections or experience, so it's hard to get good missions." Lee Si-yoon lowered her voice, cutting him off. "I'll be the bridge for you, completely free of charge." Chan Seok grimaced. "I don't understand why you're being so helpful." She leaned back slowly. "In the future, when you're famous enough for guilds to scout you, just think, there's always Janabi. That's good enough, right?" He replied, "Investing in the future, huh?" An envelope was immediately placed on the table. "Read this, it's up to you to decide." Chan Seok quickly opened the envelope. "What is this?" Lee Si-yoon explained. "It's a mission in Incheon, a place called Jyadong. 2 years ago, they failed to destroy a rift breach, so it became a danger zone." He asked, "I just need to go there and destroy the rift." She shook her head. "No, you need to patrol Jyadong Island to detect them. If a new rift appears, you destroy it." Chan Seok studied the papers closely. "Starts in a month, 500 as a deposit, 1,500 upon completion. If you consider it a life-threatening job, the pay isn't exactly high." Lee Si-yoon looked up and smiled. "If you're dissatisfied, get stronger and become famous. The money will flow into your pockets on its own." She lowered her voice, emphasizing, "So, what's your answer?" Chan Seok's lips moved with a hint of hesitation. "I." 2 expensive cars sped down the road. He agreed. "What's he like?" Lee Si-yoon lowered her voice. "Yeah." The person on the other end was surprised. "Yu Chan Seok, a civilian who defeated an armed opponent in the tournament using only his bare hands. Not bad at all." She chuckled. "Not bad isn't accurate. Give him a candy and see what he can do. He lasted 4 hours sparring with me." The person on the other end was astonished. "Is that so? You must have been limiting your power, right?" Lee Si-yoon complained. Team leader, I'm a hunter with 10 years of experience. 10 years of surviving in the deepest pits of hell. Usually I have to play around with them, but he lasted 4 hours. It's unbelievable. Even if someone was reincarnated, it's rare to find such a monster. The person on the line lowered their voice, but even if you rate him highly, the Jiadong mission clearly only recruits experienced hunters. No matter how skilled he is, will it be okay to have him operating among veteran hunters? Lee Si-yoon gripped her sword hilt tightly. Don't worry about that, team leader. The person on the other end hesitated. Fine, Janabi's strategy is your responsibility. What if he reaches your level? Lee Si-yoon smiled. This might make you uncomfortable. But if Yu Chan-seok reaches my level, he could even take you down, team leader. A month ago at Chan-seok's apartment, a delivery person was struggling with a heavy load on their back. Apartment 1506, huh? Their finger quickly pressed the doorbell. Why is this delivery so heavy, damn it? The delivery person fumbled at the door for a moment. What's the next room? By now, Chan-seok had quickly accepted the package and slammed the door shut. It's here. He crossed his arms and stared at the item in front of him. That was a long trip. The latch on the package was finally opened slowly. Chan-seok's eyes immediately froze in surprise. He seemed quite excited as he looked down at his hands. This spear will do for now, I guess. And this is an elixir. Elixir, an emergency medicine hunters often use, containing concentrated magic power, useful when you're desperate for energy. Usually, using magic power is like drinking water from a filter. You control the magic in the air, store it in your body, and use it when needed. Elixirs help shorten this process. But I use magic differently from normal people. I skip the storage step and absorb it directly from the air. The advantage is that it's unlimited because I use the magic power of the atmosphere. Furthermore, the meridians gradually strengthen when receiving and releasing magic, allowing for greater energy capacity. The only downside is that the amount of circulation is low when the meridians aren't developed, making it hard to create a large output in a short time. Now, there's no time to wait to accumulate and use it. So if I train hard for a month, I'll definitely reach the required level. On a fresh, clear morning in Incheon, Jiadong Island, everyone was standing in an incredibly crowded line. His phone, with the screen lit up, was presented immediately. Ji tilted his head. Identification verified, Team 8 Hunter Yu Chan-seok. A piece of paper with the team number was nailed firmly to a post, and buzzing voices began to reach his ears. This match pays pretty well. When do we leave? I'm so scared. I'm so sleepy. Number 8, is this zone 8? Suddenly Han Sang-ah called out loudly from somewhere, Yu Chan-seok. He replied in a low voice, you seem pretty calm. Han Sang-ah gripped her sword hilt tightly. I've always been like this, the last time was just static electricity. Anyway, it's good we're on the same team. Let's work together on this mission. Chan-seok turned back coldly. Why should I? Han Sang-ah followed slowly behind him. You're stronger than me, so I want to learn. Chan-seok started complaining. Oh man, my shoulder feels like it's going to fall off. This is embarrassing. She grimaced. Are you dislocated? Habitual dislocation is dangerous. If you're like that while using a spear, you'll die. You have to take care of your health. Chan-seok frowned, thinking, it was the same during the tournament. She really doesn't know how to joke at all. Someone immediately made an announcement. Attention, everyone. Team 8, since all members have gathered, I will now report on the mission situation. Because there are new members, I will explain the terminology. I hope you all understand. Rift breaches are divided into levels 1, 2, 3, and level less. The closer to level 1, the more dangerous. Also, if it's the first rift to appear in an area, Alpha is added to the name. Currently, the Alpha Rift in Jiadong is at the Northern Church of Insari. Even though it is currently level-less, given its characteristics, it will get stronger over time. Please absolutely do not approach it. Our mission is to patrol around Upnirai and Jiadong Myeon, detect and destroy subsidiary rift breaches, if there are. Minyi looked up, surprised. Giving a destruction mission to a team with rookies, whispers broke out. We're here, this is Jiadong Island. Is it this cold all the way out here? It feels like my blood is freezing. Chan Siok stood blankly as those words reached his ears. That's a huge exaggeration. By now, both he and Han Sang-ah were in position. In just a brief moment, they heard the warning siren. Everyone turned their eyes forward. The situation on the island will be reported from the mobile command station. If you need support, please contact the command room. The final words were emphasized thoroughly. Good luck, hunters. Minyu explained slowly. All right, first the plan. Chan Siok stared at his phone screen. Patrolling 2 zones in 1 week is fine. Suddenly, Minyu stopped talking and turned to look behind him. Chan Siok pointed at the map. Stationing at Hwagi Temple and moving around there is best. Minyu adjusted his glasses slowly. Who are you? First time I've seen this rookie's face, Yarrow asked in surprise. And why Hwagi Temple? Chan Siok explained in a low voice. From Hwagi Temple you can observe Upnirai. From the peak of Hwagi Mountain you can see Jayadong Myeon clearly, and there's an old temple house to live in, so of course we're coming here. Yarrow was a bit agitated. There's plenty of housing around here. Minyu continued. What if we get surrounded after climbing the mountain? Chan Siok replied calmly. We aren't fighting 1,000 people, so why worry about being surrounded on the mountain? They seemed to be vehemently opposed. Anyway, I won't follow the lead of an inexperienced hunter. Chan Siok thought to himself, I guess ignorant people exist in every world. Finally, he spoke up. In that case, feel free to act on your own. Right at this moment, in the deep forest, something was moving at an incredibly fast speed. Chan Siok, Han Sang-ah, and Min Yi were running forward together. Chan Siok glanced to the side. I thought Han Sang-ah would follow, but who is this? Their magic power is a bit higher than Han Sang-ah's. Kim Min Yi, right? I'm curious why you're following us. He quickly replied, it's your first time participating, right? I'm worried about leaving 2 rookies to act alone. He smiled. Thanks for your concern, at least there's one decent person. As his thoughts drifted, Chan Siok froze, realizing the danger right in front of them. His feet stopped in a hurry, without the slightest hesitation. Chan Siok immediately raised his hand to signal those behind him. Wait. Min Yi spoke up, confused. You Chan Siok. Chan Siok immediately put his finger to his lips. Please, silence and look behind that rock, he was surprised. Min Yi immediately hid silently behind the rock to observe ahead. The monsters were appearing in greater numbers. Min Yi grimaced, we should take a detour, there are too many, at least 50. Chan Siok said calmly in a low voice, Kim Min Yi, what's your unique attribute? He gritted his teeth. Are you really planning to fight? Chan Siok's eyes were full of killing intent. Hunters fighting rift monsters is a matter of course. I'll ask again, what is your unique attribute? Min Yi stuttered. Flame. He asked again, what's your most proficient skill? He hesitated slightly. Fireball. Chan Siok nodded quickly. Good, when I give the signal, please attack first. Min Yi was startled. What? Han Sang-ah, standing next to them, cut in. What should I do? Min Yi's eyes went wide in surprise. Han Sang-ah, you're being reckless too. 3 people fighting 50, and aren't you guys participating in your first mission? He panicked. We should contact other hunters immediately. Chan Siok suddenly cut him off before he could finish. Unlike us who departed from Hwagi Temple, the other hunters are searching along the coastline. There's no guarantee they'll get here in time if they hear our contact. If we let these things disperse, it'll threaten other hunters too. Those explanations were heard clearly by Min Yi, every word. That's right, even if there are hunters nearby. The conflicts that occurred before might cause them not to get here immediately. Chan Siok continued to explain, that means we have to handle this right now in this disadvantageous situation. The only way is to ambush them. There's no time, so I'll be brief. Min Yi, use fireball to attack the center, I'll hold the flank. He was still explaining his plan. Han Sang-ah, you will follow this plan, she nodded. Understood. Min Yi seemed still in a state of shock. The tactics are quite meticulous, anticipating every situation. It's as if he's gone through countless battles like this already, constant streams of confusing thoughts. Who the hell is he? Right then, all the monsters were looking in one direction. In the blink of an eye, Min Yi was the first to attack, right now. His fireball immediately unleashed intense power, with flames roaring fiercely. The monsters were simultaneously burning away within the fire. Minyi hurried to say, "I need time to prepare the next fireball." Chan Siok nodded with a grin, "Got it, hit them as soon as you're ready." Minyi's eyes were brimming with confidence in his own power. "All right, understood." In a flash, Chan Siok took off with a jump, leaping forward with eyes full of killing intent. "I value combat efficiency above all else." Chan Siok was moving perfectly, and role distribution was the key. It seemed like all the monsters before him were losing control. Chan Siok thought to himself while waiting for the next fireball, "I'll stop the others from reaching Kim Min-yi." Of course, he couldn't stop all of them by himself. The corners of his mouth curled up. That's why a clear division of labor is necessary. Beside him, Han Sang-ah was still gripping the hilt of her sword tightly. She attacked the monsters without a hint of fear. Electric currents immediately snaked across Han Sang-ah's entire body. Min-yi shouted from within the fire, "Chan Siok, the fireball is ready." He quickly turned his head and replied, "I can dodge it myself, fire." Min-yi immediately clasped his hands together to summon a fireball imbued with intense, inherent power. Chan Siok's entire body quickly leaped out of the fireball's path. His palm was still clutching his blade tightly. Chan Siok's gaze turned incredibly fearsome as he shouted, "Kill them all." The battle was still raging fiercely deep in the forest. Finally, the sharp tip of his blade was driven straight into the ground. A dense cloud of smoke appeared all around, creating an incredibly chaotic scene. Chan Siok said in a low voice, "You've all worked hard." But since when was Min-yi aiming his gun barrel at him? Kim Jae-hyun was lying on the ground, struggling just to breathe. As his internal organ damage began to set in, everything went black before his eyes. He couldn't even feel his own heartbeat anymore. He was only trying to stand straight with his last bit of strength, forced to use mana to keep his body from collapsing completely. Yu Chanseok stood there, watching the light slowly fade from his opponent's eyes. Using the last of his strength, Kim Jae-hyun begged the team leader for help. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light burst from the void, tearing through the surrounding space. Yu Chanseok sensed something coming and immediately braced himself against the new threat. A massive impact shook the earth as he blocked the sudden, powerful attack. The strength behind the blow was incredibly terrifying, causing the road's surface to crack right under his feet. Yu Chanseok looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of the attack. A gloved hand pulled back on a traditional bow, mana crackling. The team leader appeared, looking impressed that Yu Chanseok actually had the instinct to block that shot. Yu Chanseok recognized the traditional Korean archery style. This was a classic concept, but the power behind it was no joke. Just from the energy in the air, he could tell this person was far stronger than anyone he had ever fought. This wasn't just a small gap in skill. This person was many times stronger than a typical high-ranking hunter. The cloaked figure stared at him with glowing red eyes, asking if he had ever truly known fear. The team leader hovered over the battlefield from high above, evaluating his target from a distance. Purple sparks danced before Yu Chanseok's eyes when he asked if the man truly cared about the condition of his subordinate. Meanwhile, Kim Jae-hyun was still gasping his final breaths as the black fire continued to gnaw at what remained of him. The team leader didn't hesitate, telling Yu Chanseok to extinguish the flames before it was too late. Yu Chanseok realized what was happening. The cloaked figure was actually pumping his own mana into Kim Jae-hyun to keep him alive. He recalled the arrow from earlier. If it had been aimed just a few inches higher, he wouldn't even be standing here right now. Kim Jae-hyun looked like a hollow shell, his eyes dull as the mana was just barely holding him together. He emitted a weak moan, barely conscious of the world around him. In a flash of lightning-fast movement, the team leader grabbed his subordinate and took him to safety. He simply said, "Well done," to the one who had fallen. Yu Chanseok was stunned. The distance between them vanished in an instant. The team leader explained the consequences. Kim Jae-hyun was crippled, and even if he survived, he would spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. He admitted his order was to capture Yu Chanseok alive, which was the only reason he was still breathing. He drew his bow again, mana swirling around the arrow. As long as his heart was still beating, he didn't care about the rest. Yu Chanseok didn't flinch. He told him to go ahead and try because he would rather die than be anyone's puppet. The two stared at each other, the air heavy with the threat of another shot. But the team leader decided to retreat temporarily. He needed to uncover the secret behind that fire first. He claimed that while everyone thought the rifts were uncontrollable, he had found a way to master them. A cold follow-up promise. It was only a matter of time before Yu Chanseok also fell under his control. And just like that, he vanished, leaving behind only a trail of dust and silence. Yu Chanseok let out an exasperated sigh. He realized he had just stumbled into a war with someone possessing an incredibly dangerous temperament. The situation had become far more complicated. Han Sang-a limped toward him, asking if those guys were specifically hunting for his unique skill. She pointed out that they must have known his history, otherwise they would have kidnapped him the moment he was unconscious. Yu Chanseok turned away, telling her to start thinking about what these terrorists were really trying to achieve. Han Sang-a wondered if the South Korean government would even care if they cleared this rift. Yu Chanseok thought the situation was even worse. There was a possibility that those at the very top were backing these terrorists. Han Sang-a was stunned. That group claimed they could control the rifts, but Yu Chanseok told her to pretend to be ignorant for the time being. She admitted she was a terrible liar, which wasn't a good quality for a secret mission. Yu Chanseok told her to stay put. He would enter the monster's den alone. She hesitated, asking if he was really okay with leaving her behind. Yu Chanseok didn't want her going in there. He had no idea what kind of horrific things those people were preparing, but he was about to find out. He told her just to focus on recovering until he returned. He lunged forward, jumping straight into the darkness. This was the Grade 2 Tsushima corrosive rift, home to a massive, grotesque ancient fortress. He stepped inside and the air immediately felt different. He ran his hand along the wall, checking the structure. For a Grade 2 rift, this place felt way too real. Most fortresses occupied by undead usually felt soft and mushy, but this place was solid as rock. Yin energy was incredibly dense here, making every breath feel like needles piercing his lungs. He could feel it. The core of the rift lay just behind the next door. He tried to shake off his sense of unease, thinking about death before a fight was never a good sign. But he knew the severity. One mistake in a place like this and he was done for. He pushed hard on the heavy door, the wood creaking in protest. The first thing he saw was a strange blue light emanating from the center of the room. It was a massive cauldron, bubbling away with a toxic-looking soup. He paused, wondering if this was the rift's core. It definitely wasn't the treasure room he had been expecting. Suddenly, something grabbed his ankle, nearly making him jump out of his skin. A man looking exactly like him, his body half melted into an unrecognizable mass, was gasping for help with his final breaths. He was trying to crawl away from the edge of the boiling cauldron. He sobbed, saying his legs had completely vanished and the pain was unbearable. He desperately begged to be saved from the nightmare he was trapped in. Yu Chanseok watched in horror as the man was dragged backward toward the blue light. Another splash, someone else fell into the cauldron, their cry for help cut short. The liquid churned as they sank. Whatever was in that cauldron, it was devouring them while they were still alive. A pale, rotting hand gripped the edge of the cauldron, but this time it wasn't a victim. A newly cooked undead creature, oozing blue liquid, pulled itself out of the soup pot. Yu Chanseok realized this cauldron was being used to create undead from living people. A memory of an old man flashed through his head, asking the same desperate question. Why? Images of a burning village and people screaming for mercy flooded his mind. Yu Chanseok gagged. The stench of rotting flesh and chemicals finally hit him with full force. He looked at the cauldron with utter revulsion. These people weren't just terrorists, they were monsters. He sensed something else approaching, another sacrifice for the cauldron. Ghostly blue flames flickered on the floor as heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Through the darkness, the entity sensed an intense and familiar energy approaching. Cloaked in ghostly blue fire, the samurai monster boss of the corrosive rift acknowledged the presence of a true warrior. The undead samurai slowly drew his sword. He told Yu Chanseok that he intended to temper this steel with his blood. Yu Chanseok could feel a terrifying pressure in the air, making his skin crawl. He wondered how the cloaked person from earlier could possibly control a monster this powerful. Before he could finish his thought, the creature lunged in a blur. This thing was on an entirely different level from anyone he had ever faced. He knew that a single mistake here would be fatal. The protagonist gritted his teeth, focusing all his mental energy to counterattack, but the deadly blade was already streaking toward his throat. He twisted his body to dodge just in time. But the monster's speed was truly overwhelming. It was almost unbelievably fast, much quicker than he had anticipated, catching him off guard. The samurai mocked him, nodding and saying his life seemed quite long. Yu Chanseok realized he needed to end this fight quickly before his weaknesses were exposed. He decided to put everything into one decisive strike. The samurai's eyes flared with a sickly blue light. He spun his sword rapidly. A streak of steel light cut through the air. Their weapons collided, creating a massive shower of sparks. Yu Chanseok was stunned as he saw the result. His strongest attack had been blocked like it was nothing. He hadn't even seen the monster move its sword to defend. The creature explained that a truly fast attack must always be invisible. The katana blade hovered just inches from his face. Blood sprayed as the first clean strike hit its mark. He couldn't believe this thing was capable of moving even faster. The samurai remarked that Yu Chanseok was doing a good job of protecting his vital weak points. He challenged him to try and block the next series of strikes. Another slash tore through his body, causing a stream of fresh blood to spray out. Yu Chanseok was just trying to stand his ground. The towering undead warrior stood over him, completely dominating the fight. The protagonist felt the hand holding his weapon trembling. He lifted his head to look at his opponent, still refusing to yield. Dark energy began to swirl around his body. He was forced to use Paradox Flame, even though it wouldn't work as an attack against this target. He stood his ground firmly while the situation continued to spiral out of control. The monster seemed curious to see exactly how much it would take to break him. He gripped the katana hilt tightly. A flurry of rapid slashes tore through Yu Chanseok's body. He felt every fiber of his body being torn to shreds. His body began to give out as he collapsed forward. The samurai prepared to finish it once and for all. But Yu Chanseok suddenly struck back with all his remaining strength. He nearly blacked out, but he realized the creature was intentionally avoiding his head and neck. He used Paradox Flame to trigger a recovery and managed to slip behind the monster just in time. Yu Chanseok thought he had finally spotted an opening. Just as he entered the boss's blind spot, the creature wasn't done speaking yet. Before the protagonist could deliver his strike, the monster told him he was too slow. Blood splattered across the room as the samurai counterattacked in an instant. A single drop of blood fell onto the floor. The warrior stood over the fallen hero, his sword resting casually on his shoulder. Our protagonist gasped for air, completely defeated. Nevertheless, he gritted his teeth and steeled himself. He then leaped backward, putting distance between the two of them. "Missed again, huh?" the warrior muttered to himself. "You're quite lucky." The protagonist forced himself to stand, furious, accusing the warrior of intentionally holding back and keeping him alive all this time. He demanded to know why he was being toyed with, asking if it was out of pity. The warrior admitted that if it had been his former self, he would certainly have been able to kill him. Then he revealed his tragic state. He couldn't even remember a single name and had lost most of his memories from when he was alive. The gaps in his technique were caused by this amnesia, and after being defeated by an unnamed man, he had been shackled in shame. The protagonist realized their situations were polar opposites and identified that shackle as the control the terrorist had mentioned. The warrior gripped the shackle tightly, lamenting that he had lost so much. He had lost his name and even the reason he had once taken up his sword. Now all that remained was a profound resentment soaked in sorrow, which had become the fuel for his blade. His power exploded, crackling intensely all around. The protagonist panicked, wondering what he could possibly do now. Just then, the warrior asked if his current state, an embodiment of pure sorrow, truly looked pathetic as his power began to transform him. The protagonist watched in silence, noticing that the samurai's resentment had grown thicker, and analyzed that while the warrior's power had increased, he had also lost a significant amount of technique and experience. A new strategy began to take shape. If this transformed warrior couldn't kill him in a single blow, he still had a chance to win. He knew that to defeat this powerful, sorrow-filled opponent, he had to pour out every last bit of his strength. The decisive battle between Yu Chanseok and the amnesiac Rift Warrior unfolded right at the center of the collapsing rift. The Rift Warrior watched intently, sensing a strange quality in his opponent's power that he couldn't quite pinpoint. As the black flames enveloped the protagonist, his wounds and energy were fully restored, preparing him for the next stage of the battle. His opponent accurately deduced that he possessed a special ability, remarking that the black flames seemed to be burning something other than mana. Our protagonist smirked, confirming the warrior's suspicion by revealing that his unique flames had the ability to burn even abstract concepts. However, deep down, he thought that although his power appeared infinite and destructive, he wasn't yet proficient enough to use it that way. He continued to reflect on the complexity of this ability, knowing that burning larger, more abstract concepts required immense mana and absolute control to avoid dangerous backlash. He recalled the delicate control he had to exercise during his battle with Kim Jae-hyun, when he had to be careful not to accidentally burn his own muscle strength. Then, the protagonist compared his incredibly powerful past self to a sharp greatsword, while his current, weaker body was like a fruit knife. He admitted his former self wouldn't have needed to be so careful. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he decided he could no longer afford to be picky and prepared to take an extreme risk. With renewed determination, he declared his intent to go all out by burning the very durability of the entire rift. The Rift Warrior was completely baffled, unable to understand the statement or the meaning of burning a concept like durability. Seeing that explaining was enough, Yu Chanseok just waved off the warrior's confusion, deciding to show him the effect directly. The warrior's eyes widened as he felt the shift in his opponent's energy. Immediately after, he was struck by a lightning-fast attack from the protagonist. As the Rift Warrior staggered from the first hit, Yu Chanseok mocked him about the new rules of the fight. The warrior cried out in pain while the protagonist smirked, telling him, "Try to understand why you were hit." Now that he realized his opponent had limits, the protagonist was confident that the tide had completely turned in his favor. Eager to test his own limits, he decided this was the perfect opportunity to see how far his current strength could go. Their collision was so fast and violent that the two looked like swirling forms of blue and pitch-black energy. No longer bound by gravity, the two warriors plunged into a spectacular, high-speed aerial battle amidst the floating debris. The Rift Warrior raised his sword, preparing for the finishing blow. However, Yu Chanseok blocked the strike with his spear. Gritting his teeth, he poured all his strength into the spear. But the Rift Warrior overwhelmed him with pure strength and slashed his spear in two. In a flash of light, a clean hit landed, sending our protagonist plummeting downward in horror. The battlefield was now a surreal, dreamlike scene with floating boulders beneath a hazy sky. An orb resembling a shattered moon hung in the sky of the crumbling dimension, adding to the desolate atmosphere. Yu Chanseok's power continued to dissolve the world around them as massive pieces of land fractured. Taking advantage of the chaotic environment, Yu Chanseok kicked off a platform to propel himself forward. The thrust from the leap created a massive shockwave, sending him flying through the air at terrifying speed. The Rift Warrior was caught off guard as his opponent closed the distance in the blink of an eye. For the first time, a look of genuine surprise appeared in the warrior's eyes as he faced this unfamiliar tactic. Yu Chanseok's eyes glowed with power as he unleashed a new and devastating attack. Summoning a storm of phantom blue spears, a technique completely foreign to his opponent. The Rift Warrior was trapped in the storm of blades, unable to defend against the sheer volume of projectiles. The overwhelming force of the attack sent the warrior crashing downward. He looked down, completely bewildered by this turn of events. He then admitted to himself that even through countless battlefields in the past, he had never encountered such power. Clearly unsettled, he demanded to know what on earth his opponent was. His confusion turned to panic as he sensed Yu Chanseok preparing one final, even more powerful attack. As he looked up, a massive cross-shaped energy structure was manifesting in the sky. The massive energy attack descended, ready to obliterate everything in its path. Yu Chanseok thrust his spear forward, locking the attack into position and trapping his opponent. An inescapable cage formed from brilliant turquoise energy rays surrounded the Rift Warrior. The warrior was trapped, his body hanging helplessly inside the complex energy prison, screaming in agony. But just then, with an indomitable roar, he unleashed a massive surge of power in a desperate attempt to shatter the cage. His own energy swirled frantically, threatening to break the trap Yu Chanseok had carefully woven. As the warrior focused on breaking the cage, Yu Chanseok lunged, seizing the perfect moment for the final, decisive blow. He let out a battle cry, pouring all his remaining strength into an ultimate attack. The Rift Warrior's eyes widened as he saw the finishing blow coming, and both began unleashing attacks at lightning speed. A deep wound appeared on the protagonist's chest, and he fell backward, while his opponent was slashed clean through the torso. Yet both refused to give up, continuing to grit their teeth, letting out a loud shout as if preparing for a final strike. Immediately after, a horrific explosion erupted at the center of the battlefield. In a flashback, a young knight asked his seasoned commander, Chanseok, a hypothetical question about facing an unbeatable enemy. He then clarified, asking how to approach a battle against an opponent who was a perfect match for himself. The question was posed to the hero on a desolate battlefield, a moment that clearly shaped his philosophy. The hero, Chanseok, seriously considered the difficult question of facing an opponent he absolutely couldn't defeat. The young knight persisted, truly curious about what would happen if someone possessing power equal to the legendary hero were to appear. With a cold and steady gaze, Chanseok said the answer was obvious. He offered his ruthless philosophy. In a true battle between two perfectly matched equals, one of the two would not survive to walk away. Back in the present, a wounded Yu Chanseok stood triumphantly over the defeated Rift Warrior. His past self's words echoed in his mind. The Rift Warrior's form dissolved into particles of light, and his existence slowly faded away. As the last remnants of the warrior dissipated, he became the sole survivor. With a tired but triumphant smile, he reaffirmed his core belief in his own strength, declaring that indeed he was the strongest. After the battle, Yu Chanseok's spear stood thrust straight into the ground of the collapsing rift. Standing in a victorious pose, he observed the destruction he had wrought to defeat the mighty Rift Warrior. As the rift destabilized, a reward chest appeared before him, a familiar sight from his past life. He let out a sigh of relief as the reward system on Earth worked exactly like it did in that other world. The intricately carved chest then opened with a click, revealing the reward for his hard-fought victory. Inside, he found a gold-bladed spear. However, he noticed its length seemed unusually short for such a weapon. But when he grasped the spear's hilt, he felt there was more to this weapon than met the eye. With a surge of mana, the spear instantly extended to its formidable original length, truly a neat trick. Realizing its length could be manipulated with mana, he judged this new, versatile weapon quite useful. He then remembered that rewards from rifts were allocated based on the number of participants. For a moment, he regretted not bringing Han Sang-ah along just to collect her share, since he had handled the entire battle alone anyway. This spoke volumes about his character. A fleeting thought crossed his mind as he wondered if her sword had survived their previous encounters. With the rift now closed, the once chaotic Tsushima airport now stood silent under a peaceful night sky. Nearby, Han Sang-ah was resting, recovering from the ordeal. She was fast asleep. Just then, a sword, complete with its scabbard, gently tapped her on the head, tossed by Yu Chanseok, a rather unusual way to get her attention. As she turned around, she called his name. She said she had never seen a sword like this before, and he told her it was a good sword to use as a replacement. Impressed by the quality and the weapon's perfect maintenance, Han Sang-ah expressed her gratitude. However, she worried that he might have taken it from within the dangerous rift, but he just lightly brushed off her concern and asked if she had rested enough. His expression turned serious as he announced that he was about to go and rest as well. His body was exhausted and he collapsed from complete fatigue, a sudden and dramatic end to his victory. Witnessing him pass out, Han Sang-ah was startled to realize that even her seemingly invincible master had his limits. News of Yu Chanseok single-handedly clearing a Tier 2 rift spread like a shockwave through the hunter community, as the gap between Tier 2 and Tier 3 was considered insurmountable. Simply put, this achievement was supposed to be impossible. On the streets, people buzzed about the incredible news, finding it hard to believe that a rookie hunter could do what even skilled pairs struggled with. Yu Chanseok became an overnight star, his face appearing on every billboard as the public hungered to know more about this mysterious new hero. While recovering at the hospital, his phone was bombarded by so many messages that he couldn't find the important ones. His newfound fame turned out to be a burden as he couldn't even step outside without being recognized. His relative peace was quickly broken by a knock on his private room door. A woman with braided purple hair introduced herself as Ya Sujiang from the Embargo Tower Company's secretariat. Yu Chanseok thanked her for covering the medical expenses, and she explained that her company wasn't well known yet because its primary focus was ICT. Cutting straight to the chase, he said he was very curious about the real reason behind this visit. Knowing that such expensive treatment wasn't just a simple act of charity, he bluntly asked what the Embargo Tower wanted from him. He clearly wasn't the type for small talk. Eager to get to the point, he stood ready to hear her proposal. To break the tense atmosphere, she pushed a box of strawberry cake forward and simply asked, "Do you like cake?" An entirely unexpected question. The topic of the meeting was revealed. It was a prototype shield generator designed to defend against corrosive monsters. And so, over strawberry cake, the two began to discuss the mission details. Yu Chanseok confirmed that he understood the job. He was hired to transport the mana-powered shield generator. She then emphasized the importance of the mission, asserting that this device had the potential to change the fate of humanity by bringing relief to areas that hunters couldn't reach. The stakes couldn't have been higher. He listened attentively, realizing the weight of her words and the scale of the operation. He correctly deduced that this was a large-scale request, and she confirmed that they were also contacting other hunters for cooperation. Hearing that the powerful Janabi Guild had also agreed to assist, he realized this mission was far bigger than he had originally thought. She then described the long and dangerous route. The generator would be transported by train from Vladivostok to the Netherlands and then by helicopter to the UK for testing. When he asked why they had to go as far as the UK, she explained that the final destination was Britain because most of Europe and North Africa were under the influence of a powerful organization called Restaurants. The United Kingdom remained the relatively safest place in the region, thanks to its island geography providing a slight buffer against the chaos. With Europe in a state of anarchy and hunter corporations acting like warlords, the transport mission would be extremely dangerous, at the very least, a hostile environment. Yu Chanseok cut through the pleasantries, stating the obvious: there would be a massive number of people targeting that train. She asked if he had any experience traveling abroad, and he admitted this would be his first time going to Europe. She revealed that she would also be joining the mission because the Embargo Tower was responsible for collecting and analyzing all the data. While eating the cake, he commented on her confidence in his participation, but admitted that having a familiar face along was quite comforting. However, before agreeing, he set one condition: he wanted Hunter Han Sang-ah to accompany him. He explained that he had made a promise to his trusted friend and disciple, and he intended to keep it. A man of his word, Ya Sujiang happily agreed, saying that any hunter he trusted was a valuable asset, while he thought to himself that this request actually benefited him as well. With the terms set, he officially accepted the mission, telling himself that this high-level international operation was the perfect opportunity to expand his influence much faster than originally planned. Sometime later, a military helicopter arrived to take him to the mission briefing. Yu Chanseok smirked at the chairman, nodding that he had to mobilize a helicopter just to pick up a civilian, remarking that being treated like a VIP and clearing a Grade 2 Rift solo had really put him in a league of his own. However, Hunter Association Chairman Moon Young assured him that his achievements had turned expectations into certainty and pledged the association's full support. Yu Chanseok reflected that proving one's strength certainly made things run more smoothly. Still, he wondered to himself if the chairman knew about the terrorist group Dangun's heirs, and how he would react to their existence. He then pondered whether this powerful chairman wanted to fix the world's dire state or maintain the status quo that served his own interests. As he boarded the helicopter, he was surprised by the identity of the other passenger. First-class Hunter Lee Si-yoon greeted him coldly, remarking that it had been a while. She commented that rumors about him had spread far. He dryly replied that at this point it was harder to find someone who didn't know about him. He then asked her about their destination and was informed they were heading to a military base. He knew the South Korean military was also involved in the mission, highlighting its national importance. He immediately grasped the geopolitical implications. A successful shield generator would significantly reduce the world's dependence on hunters for national defense. In other words, the entire global balance of power was at stake. Suspicious of the government's motives, he bluntly asked her if she knew about an organization called Dangun's heirs. She answered for him, confirming she knew about the extremist, ultraist terrorist group. She seemed surprised he knew too, leading him to reveal his encounter on Tsushima Island. She explained that Dangun's heirs, a group consisting solely of Koreans, specialized in sabotaging rift-clearing operations conducted by other hunters. Recalling his conversation with Kim Jae-hyun, Yu Chanseok admitted he could roughly understand their extremist ideology. He also understood the twisted logic behind their actions. Changing the subject, she suddenly startled him by saying, "Catch this," and tossing him a candy bar. A strange and sudden shift in tone. He stared at the pumpkin butter candy with a completely puzzled expression, wondering why she had given it to him. Lee Si-yoon then asked him the same question Ya Sujiang had. Did he have experience abroad? Confused by the repetitive questioning, he confirmed this was his first time traveling so far from home. With that, she smiled meaningfully, cryptically suggesting that his current perspective was understandable given his lack of experience. As the helicopter flew toward the sunset, she predicted that this mission would make him realize many things. Yu Chanseok's high-level international mission briefing began in a military conference room. Yu Chanseok and Lee Si-yoon listened intently with cold expressions as the meeting started. Major General Han Seok formally introduced himself and prepared to outline the details of the dangerous operation. He explained that their primary responsibility was to protect an 80-mile, approx. 128 km, long train with 65 cargo carriages. He added that the remaining 15 carriages were reserved for the participating hunters and military personnel to ensure they had enough space to rest. Yu Chanseok dryly remarked on the special treatment reserved for Lee Si-yoon, who was granted an entire private carriage, a privilege befitting her status as the 10th-ranked hunter in the world. The general continued, revealing that the embargo tower had entrusted the responsibility of protecting the carriage containing the vital shield generator entirely to Guild Janabi, citing the long journey and anticipated fatigue. He proposed that the South Korean military share the burden of protecting the generator. But Lee Si-yoon immediately and decisively rejected the proposal, leaving the general completely blindsided. She asserted that since Janabi was responsible, there would naturally be many powerful enemies targeting the generator. With an authoritative air, she declared that no one except Janabi was permitted to approach that carriage. Rejected outright, Major General and Hun Seok sweated, clumsily attempting to move to the next part of the meeting. Hearing this, Lee Si-yoon calmly encouraged him to continue. After having made her point clear, the general outlined the treacherous route, highlighting 7 high-risk corrosive zones between Vladivostok and the UK. But the threats didn't end there. He warned about Siberian bandits and revealed that out of the 8 European warlords contacted, only 3 had responded appropriately. Yu Chanseok immediately realized the dark implications. The 5 warlords who didn't respond must be considered hostile. A soldier voiced the general concern, asking how they could deal with corrosive monsters, bandits, and warlords throughout the 2-week mission. Doubt spread through the room as other officials whispered that the mission's success seemed impossible. Then a single, confident voice cut through the despair, telling everyone not to worry. It was Lee Si-yoon who looked around the entire room and swore with cold conviction that she would ensure the train arrived safely, no matter what happened. On D-Day, the operation officially began at the snow-covered Vladivostok station in Russia. The guide called for second-class passengers to quickly board the train. Yu Chanseok walked along the long, snow-covered platform toward his assigned carriage. He craned his neck, commenting on the dreadfully long walk to the first-class carriages on the kilometer-long train. However, he was suddenly stopped by Han Sang-ah, who reminded him of the promise he had made her. Now wearing her new fur-lined combat gear, she confirmed that she would deliver the elixirs he owed her once the mission was complete. When he asked where she had been, she nonchalantly said she had been riding in the luxury cars in first class, which was why he couldn't find her. The protagonist then remarked on the special treatment reserved for world-class hunters like Lee Si-yoon, whom she also couldn't find. As they observed the train, Ya Sujiang acknowledged its overwhelming presence, and the protagonist greeted Ya Sujiang, who had just arrived. Ya Sujiang welcomed him, asking if he'd had a chance to tour the impressive train. Since he had just arrived, he commented on the massive effort and resources. It was clear the embargo tower had invested heavily in this mission. He then looked at the carriage containing the shield generator, which was under heavy guard, calling its defensive system true armored security. However, he asked Ya Sujiang, "But isn't it more dangerous because it stands out so much?" She clarified that although the carriage was eye-catching, the depleted uranium armor made it extremely secure. Yu Chanseok felt reassured, believing that with Lee Si-yoon present, the mission would go smoothly unless something serious happened. However, his confidence was immediately shattered when a flock of bizarre flying eye monsters attacked the train. An injured hunter screamed for help, yelling that anyone free should get to carriage 57. Cursing under his breath, Yu Chanseok immediately sprang into action to handle the threat. Less than 10 minutes after departure, the train was under a full-scale assault by a massive swarm of corrosive monsters. During the fight, he became increasingly frustrated, shouting that no matter how many he killed, they never stopped coming. He bitterly wished Lee Si-yoon were there to provide support, knowing her power would resolve the swarm quickly. The problem was that the Trans-Siberian Railway was broken and being repaired as the train moved, requiring constant protection for the repair crews. And this critical defensive role had been specifically assigned to Lee Si-yoon, leaving her stuck. The protagonist cursed the commander's plan, which had neutralized their strongest warrior, preventing her from using her full power. Irritated by the poor strategy, he sliced through another flying monster. Facing a sky full of enemies, he steeled himself for a long and arduous battle. Just then, the scene shifted to another conflict in Khabarovsk, Russia. The powerful warlord Nikolai Baranov dragged the corpse of a giant, bloodied shark-like monster. Looking up from his prey, he wondered about the figure approaching him. He recognized Lee Ha-yun by the campfire and wondered why this person had appeared again. Suddenly, the monster he thought was dead lunged from behind for one final attack. Without flinching, Nikolai activated the machine gun mounted in his arm. As the bullet hit the monster, it exploded, shattering the body into pieces and spraying blood into the air. The chunks of the monster's flesh collapsed to the ground, and it was dead for good. Nikolai then turned to his guest, calling Ha-yun a troublemaker for showing up unannounced, accompanied by a friendly smile. Ha-yun greeted the warlord nonchalantly saying, "Long time no see." He explained that he had come to ask for a favor, but had been treated to a fun match right as he arrived. He then formally addressed Nikolai Baranov, the ruler of Khabarovsk. Nikolai complained that he had caught this beast for dinner, only for it to wake up after he'd knocked it out. However, Ha-yun told him to wipe off the blood, sarcastically insulting both Russian cuisine and Korean style. Cutting to the chase, Nikolai asked about the job, making it clear he wasn't short on money. Ha-yun smiled, confident that the job he was offering would pique the warlord's interest. He revealed that a train from Vladivostok would be passing through their territory in the next few days. Nikolai scoffed, thinking it was a bad joke because the Trans-Siberian Railway had been destroyed long ago. But Ha-yun explained that some awakened individuals could repair things incredibly fast, which was how the tracks were being fixed. Nikolai curiously asked how a train could run while being repaired, and what kind of precious cargo it was carrying. Ha-yun dodged the question, saying the cargo wasn't important. What mattered was who was transporting it. Nikolai's eyes widened in surprise when Ha-yun revealed the main target was Janabi's candy queen, Lee Si-yoon. When Nikolai asked if he had a plan to deal with such a powerful opponent, Ha-yun just smiled and said, "Naturally." A cruel smile spread across Nikolai's face as he drooled at the idea of raiding a train protected by a world-famous hunter. However, Ha-yun clarified the objective, not looting but an act of sabotage aimed at a specific carriage, and protecting that carriage was Guild Janabi's mission. He thought of the warlord as human trash, making it clear he didn't want the carriage blown up. Instead, he gave Nikolai a terminal and instructed him to infiltrate the carriage and then connect the device to the machinery inside. Nikolai excitedly asked if he could smash up the cargo afterward. Ha-yun confirmed that would be even better. Thrilled at the prospect of a good fight, Nikolai roared that he accepted the job. He vowed to not only destroy the cargo, but to slaughter every remaining hunter right in front of Lee Si-yoon. With a bloodthirsty roar, the ruler of Khabarovsk prepared to rain hell down upon the unsuspecting train. On the speeding train, Yu Chanseok was hacking his way through a swarm of flying monsters alone. Watching from afar, the other mission personnel couldn't believe their eyes. They were astounded that a rookie was killing nearly 100 monsters by himself, a display of power that was hard to believe. With a final thud, he drove his spear into the roof of the train. The immediate threat had been resolved. People whispered that he looked more like a monster than the monsters themselves. While observing the carnage, our protagonist thought to himself that this area was relatively clean now. He glanced over at the other hunters who were injured and exhausted, and judged that they had been useless during the early stages of the mission. He didn't seem impressed at all. Realizing he couldn't rely on them, he coldly concluded that from now on, he would have to carry this battle alone. Meanwhile, Han Sang-ah, ever the diligent hunter, tried to rally her exhausted teammates, reminding them that the mission wasn't over yet. Yu Chanseok chuckled to himself at the scene, thinking that sure enough, she was the only one truly useful. But his train of thought was abruptly interrupted by a strange vibration. A massive explosion tore through the landscape ahead, destroying the train tracks in a swirl of snow and ice shards, and in just an instant, the path ahead was completely blocked. As he wondered if it was an avalanche, the radio control room called in to confirm they had detected an obstacle, but they would continue to push forward. Sensing real danger, Lee Si-yoon's eyes glowed as she urgently signaled the control room. Her voice was sharp and authoritative, issuing one vital order: stop the train. Standing on the roof of the lead locomotive, she confirmed her suspicions, declaring that the enemy had appeared. Right then, a massive beam of red energy tore through the air from the distance, aimed straight at her. Gripping her massive greatsword, she prepared to face the incoming attack. With her blade, she deflected the energy beam upward. The attacker, revealed to be a man clad in high-tech armor with a jetpack, soared through the air and lunged toward her. While Han Sang-a was stunned by their sudden appearance, Yu Chanseok calmly told her to recall the details from the briefing, emphasizing that only one person had the capability to do this near Khabarovsk. He identified their new enemy, the notorious armed gang led by the warlord Nikolai Baranov. Just as Lee Si-yoon realized they had set an ambush, she was suddenly ambushed by a barrage of magical talismans. The talismans exploded in a brilliant purple light, weaving a powerful sealing spell around her. Caught completely off guard by the potent magic, she was stunned for a moment. The purple energy of the seal grew increasingly powerful, swirling around her and restricting her movement. Han Sang-a watched the scene in horror and disbelief as their strongest hunter was neutralized. Their greatest hope had been eliminated in the blink of an eye. Anxious, she called out the commander's name, asking if something was wrong. Struggling within the magical chains, Lee Si-yoon gritted her teeth. She reluctantly admitted to her disciple that she had been completely sealed. Right at that moment, she sent a notification to all the hunters on the train. She announced the enemy's attack and informed them that Commander Lee Si-yoon was unable to join the battle, causing a wave of panic to spread among the other hunters. The grim reality of the situation dawned on them as they learned the enemy forces outnumbered them 5 to 10 times over. The odds were completely stacked against them. Nevertheless, she encouraged the terrified hunters, declaring that retreat was not an option and that their mission was to protect the train. Even though she was trapped, she remained steadfast and ended her command with intense spirit, shouting the word "hunt." Without hesitation, Yu Chanseok told Han Sang-a to follow him as he jumped off the train to confront the enemy. The remaining hunters watched in awe and horror, calling him a madman for daring to jump down to face an army of 500 alone. It was an act of complete recklessness. Yet, inspired by the rookie's extraordinary courage, the other hunters regained their own composure, unwilling to stand by while the two fought alone. It seemed his bravery was contagious. Despite being sealed, Lee Si-yoon remained determined, vowing to break the seal and return to the front lines as soon as possible. However, a man named Lee Hyun appeared before her with a triumphant look, stating that escaping his seal wouldn't be that easy. Lee Si-yoon glared at the newcomer, immediately recognizing his magic and asking if he was the one responsible for the seal. He calmly introduced himself as a member of the heirs of Dangun and revealed that he and Lee Si-yoon were actually distant relatives. He then mockingly called her 10th cousin, asking if meeting a relative in a foreign land wasn't a joyful occasion. Ignoring his taunts, she attempted to shatter the seal with sheer force. But her massive greatsword shattered instead. For the first time, she revealed genuine shock, staring at the broken hilt in her hand. This was the first crack in her composure. Lee Hyun, however, arrogantly stated that the seal wouldn't break so easily and advised her to surrender since she had been disarmed. But she only smirked, asking why he was making such a big deal out of a broken sword. She twisted the ring on her finger, and it began to glow with a brilliant blue light. Lee Hyun's confident expression immediately wavered as he realized what she was about to do. A brand new sword appeared in her hand, and she mocked him, asking if he recognized her trump card. A system window explained her rare item, the mirror ring, which had the ability to instantly replicate and summon a registered weapon the moment it was destroyed. When he called her a fool for her brute force approach, she countered, asking who the real fool was. She then raised her new sword, ready for another attempt. With a cruel insult regarding his chances with women, she unleashed another powerful slash against the seal. Meanwhile, Yu Chanseok and Han Sang-a were ready to confront the entire army rushing toward them. Yu Chanseok's gaze remained steady and sharp as Nikolai's army drew near. Hovering above his troops, Nikolai Baranov laughed loudly, mocking the two hunters for thinking they could stand against his numbers. With a cruel smile, he declared that he was the one who decided who survived, offering to spare their lives if they surrendered. Yu Chanseok was confused because Nikolai was flying, yet he couldn't sense any mana. Han Sang-a explained that thanks to the armor from the old Predator project, it was designed so the user could fight without needing mana. She continued, revealing that the armor was a prototype for the South Korean military, abandoned because the materials were too difficult to gather. However, he felt suspicious that a Russian gang leader would possess rare, decommissioned Korean military technology, which raised a very important question. The reality of the situation hit Han Sang-ah when she realized that hunting this time meant she had to kill human beings. Seeing her hesitation, he told her to go back if she couldn't handle fighting humans for the first time. Hearing that, she countered that he hadn't fought humans before either, but she tightened her resolve, saying that since the enemy was trying to kill them, it made no difference. With a sharp gaze, she concluded that these bandits were no different from the corrosive monsters she had killed before. But when one of Nikolai's henchmen rushed at her with an axe, she hesitated, saying, "Easier said than done." But with lightning speed, Yu Chanseok slashed the man's head off. The headless corpse collapsed in front of her, blood spraying like a fountain. Yu Chanseok then offered cold, practical advice, telling her to do what needed to be done, but not to let guilt consume her. With a sneer, he assured her that any remorse she felt would fade in just a few days, or a month at the latest. Surrounded by the chaos of battle, Yu Chanseok listened to the cacophony of screams and clashing weapons. The snow-covered battlefield before him was a gruesome painting drawn with spilled entrails and rivers of blood. He could feel the raw, dark, and violent whirlwind of human emotions swirling around him. Although he had extensive experience with war, he still found this scene of carnage truly repulsive. However, he coldly admitted that a part of him felt disturbingly familiar with this slaughter. His focus narrowed as he prepared to turn the tide of the battle. He realized they had the advantage in skill, but were outnumbered and being pushed back by the enemy's momentum. He calmly reasoned that there was only one clear path to victory. His strategy was simple: ignore the grunts and focus on killing the enemy commander, Nikolai Baranov. The warlord recognized his opponent, smirking as he identified him as the famous rookie from South Korea. Just before the fight began, the protagonist dryly remarked that news traveled so fast that even Russian thugs now knew his face. As the battle commenced, Yu Chanseok used his spear to block Nikolai's glowing red sword. Nikolai smirked at his opponent's strength, but the protagonist silently admitted that Nikolai was dangerously fast and strong. He also noted that Nikolai's advanced military armor was extremely durable, not even showing a scratch. He admitted this was a tough opponent and winning wouldn't be easy, but then he smirked, realizing that this battle would have been difficult if not for the power he had gained on Tsushima Island. With that immense power, he blasted his opponent backward. Nikolai was completely caught off guard by the unexpected force, cursing his opponent. In a fit of rage, he activated the machine gun on his arm, firing a dense volley of bullets and swearing to end it immediately. Dodging bullets as he rushed forward, Yu Chanseok thought to himself that contrary to what his opponent said about finishing him off, Nikolai was actually suppressing his firepower. But why? He quickly deduced the man's true motive: stop the train without damaging the precious shield generator inside. Realizing the attack had been intentionally weakened, he concluded that the enemy knew Lee Sayun would be there to take the hit. Suspicious circumstances began to pile up in his mind: a Russian wearing South Korean military armor and a sealing mage appearing at the perfect moment. He concluded that more than one or two suspicious things were going on. As his paradox flames enveloped Nikolai's armor, Nikolai cried out in horror, "What is this?" The protagonist revealed his trump card. He was burning the abstract concept of the armor's durability, with his opponent's strongest defense compromised. He lunged again, vowing to end the fight quickly. Nikolai could only watch in horror and disbelief as his supposedly impenetrable armor disintegrated before his eyes. The rage of being outplayed caused him to scream, calling Yu Chanseok a rat while he swung his sword. But it was dodged. Yu Chanseok welcomed the charge, unleashing a devastating 16-hit blue trajectory combo. The final blow of the sequence, a powerful technique called cannon, slammed straight into Nikolai. The blow landed accurately, leaving the warlord stunned inside his now fragile armor. Seeing the critical crack in his armor, Nikolai realized he needed to retreat to buy time. In a desperate attempt to survive, he offered to help break the seal on Lee Si-yoon if the attacker would just stop. Yu Chanseok completely ignored the plea and continued his assault. With one final overwhelming blow, he slashed both the armor and Nikolai's body in two. He then looked down at his defeated opponent with cold indifference. Standing victoriously over Nikolai's bisected body, he declared that he didn't need his help. And to prove it, Lee Si-yoon began to shatter the seal holding her with her own immense power. The hunters were speechless, stunned by his power and bravery. But the shock quickly turned into laughter when they realized they had won the battle. Yu Chanseok then confidently asserted that a hunter at Lee Si-yoon's level could easily have broken the seal herself. Deep within the mystical prison, her eyes began to glow with power, ready to burst out. Sometime after the battle, the train continued its journey through the desolate, snow-covered mountains. The aftermath of the fight was a grim landscape filled with the corpses of monsters and soldiers. The South Korean hunters stood guard outside the train after the immediate threat had been eliminated. A freed Lee Si-yoon congratulated Yu Chanseok for a job well done, handing him a piece of candy as a reward for his efforts. While holding the candy, he confirmed his suspicion that the sealing mage was indeed a member of the heirs of Dangun. She explained that the terrorists had fled as soon as she broke the seal, so they hadn't been able to capture him. He accepted her report while the other hunters looked at him with confusion. They stared at him in disbelief, asking what he was doing. He replied that he was about to eat the candy, causing them to panic and ask why he would eat that. His teammates cried out in panic, screaming that he was crazy. The protagonist asked her what was going on with everyone. She replied, "Perhaps you are the only one willing to eat that." She explained that although everyone collected the candy from her, they were usually kept as trophies, no one ever ate them. However, his attention shifted away from the conversation when he noticed something in the distance. He saw South Korean soldiers recovering advanced military equipment from Nikolai's corpse. And then a disturbing implication struck him. A Russian warlord was using specialized South Korean military equipment. He reasoned that this could only happen if Nikolai were backed by a power strong enough to ignore the South Korean government, or if the South Korean military itself was secretly complicit in the warlord's actions. This discovery led to a chilling question: could he truly trust the military personnel on this mission? Just then, the scene shifted to a bustling city. The sealing mage Lee Hyun staggered forward. Completely exhausted after the battle, he cursed his defeat, admitting he had spent too much mana maintaining the seal on Lee Si-yoon. He approached and greeted his superior, a mysterious captain wearing a hooded cloak. He apologized for failing the mission, but the captain just waved it off, dismissing it as a minor stumble on a much longer journey. The superior comforted him, telling him to forget the failure and focus on recovering. With one final word of encouragement, he told the shamed man not to lose his self-respect. However, when he was alone, the captain's calm demeanor shattered, revealing his heartbreaking disappointment at their failure. The leader raged that if he could have analyzed those paradox flames, he would have killed Yu Chanseok on the spot. As the elevator doors opened, it revealed a new location. The leader stepped into a dark lab filled with monitors and called for Dr. Seo Jae-woo. The chubby doctor spun his chair holding a piece of pizza and nonchalantly asked why he had come to his lab. The captain asked about the progress of the secret project, and the doctor replied that it was doable, but it would take time. However, the doctor mentioned the need for a large budget. The leader brushed off the concern and ordered him to work faster. Afterward, the doctor said he would do his best. By the way, it's a pity. If they had figured out the principle of the shield generator, it would have been very useful. The leader said, "Don't worry," emphasizing that the journey through Siberia was still very long, implying they would have many more chances to act. Meanwhile, on the train, Yu Chanseok was now extremely wary of the allies he had thought were reliable. The heavy armored train continued its long, grueling journey across the desolate, snow-covered Siberian plains. Inside the command center, a military officer delivered a grim report to Lee Si-yoon. They had lost a third of their combat strength, with 5 dead and 10 injured. Lee Si-yoon took command, ordering first aid for the injured and requesting the team to arrange thorough medical care for them upon arrival in Warsaw, Poland. When asked who was controlling the territory ahead, the officer identified the local warlord as a man named Mazurka. Lee Si-yoon immediately ordered contact with the Hunter Guild contracted to Mazurka and requested their cooperation to ensure safe passage. However, the officer expressed doubt, asking if such a powerful warlord would cooperate so easily. But Lee Si-yoon confidently asserted that they would have no other choice, leveraging her future influence and the Janabi Guild to force their compliance. Meanwhile, in Poland, the scene shifted to the massive headquarters of the famous Hunter Guild, Esprit. Inside, an assistant rushed to inform their superior about an unexpected cooperation request from South Korea's prestigious Janabi Guild. Partner Hunter Robert Dean exploded in rage, contemptuously telling the assistant to tell Lee Si-yoon to go to hell. His colleague panicked, trying to talk him down, reminding him that the request came from South Korea's legendary Candy Queen, a famous hunter who had cleared 5 Tier 1 rifts. Robert remained stubbornly disobedient, dismissing her as just a hunter and asking why they should risk their lives just because she asked. However, another hunter expressed deep respect, declaring that if necessary, he would be ready to jump into fire for her. Extremely outraged by this loyalty, Robert roared that his colleagues were fools for idolizing someone who was just a commissioned hunter. Suddenly, the room fell silent as a group of Esprit's top hunters appeared, standing united against his rage. Robert was stunned to see so many colleagues gathering to oppose him. One hunter even declared she would rather pay the fine and leave the guild than refuse the Candy Queen's request. He could only stare in disbelief, unable to fathom their unwavering loyalty to a woman he considered just a colleague. He shouted in anger that no matter how famous she was no different from him. A fellow hunter calmly corrected his delusion, simply stating that the Candy Queen was different. The others agreed, recounting how Lee Si-yoon's funds had saved each of them, whether through life-saving surgeries or rescues from rifts. A colleague warned him that the guild would be in trouble if everyone quit, urging him to apologize and accept the request. Cornered and defeated, Robert could only curse her name under his breath, wondering if their influence really went this far. Back on the train, Lee Si-yoon looked out the window and reflected on the harsh reality of the mission. Worried whether the injured hunters could hold out for another 5 days until they reached Warsaw. She silently hoped there wouldn't be any more unexpected delays on this dangerous journey. As if on cue, an emergency alarm blared through the communication system, warning of approaching marine corrosive monsters. Outside, the source of the alarm was revealed. A giant swarm of slimes was rushing toward the train. The alarm kept wailing as all hunters were ordered to prepare for battle immediately. Inside, some less experienced hunters panicked, unable to believe they were being attacked by things that looked as weak as slimes. However, Lee Si-yoon knew exactly the true danger they were facing. Her expression turned grave as she gripped her greatsword. Unfamiliar with this world's monsters, Yu Chanseok turned to her calmly and asked, "What's a slime?" She explained they aren't regular monsters but Grade 1 corrosive monsters from a rift nicknamed the Refrigerator. This left Yu Chanseok astonished. He expressed his confusion, asking how monsters from a rift over 600 km away could appear here. She grimly concluded that the corrosive zone must have expanded, making the fight against these Grade 1 creatures incredibly difficult. As the group reached the train roof, the protagonist anxiously asked just how dangerous slimes really were. She explained that their body temperature was like liquid nitrogen, capable of freezing and shattering any equipment they touched. Right then, at her command, the archers aimed, preparing to test the monster's defenses. On the signal, the hunters fired a volley of mana-infused arrows at the advancing swarm. The arrows flew with precision, striking straight into the slime's gelatinous bodies, but to their horror, the attacks were completely ineffective. Lee Si-yoon revealed the terrifying truth that slimes possessed extreme mana resistance. Yu Chanseok quickly grasped the critical situation, If mana-infused attacks didn't work, they had no way to deal effective damage. Panic began to spread when an archer yelled that their attacks were failing and the slimes were about to reach the train. Just then, Lee Si-yoon desperately said the mission was a failure. The other hunters could only look on in despair, believing their situation was hopeless. Yet amidst the growing panic, Yu Chanseok and his disciple Han Sang-ah remained completely calm. He nonchalantly approached a lead archer and asked if he could borrow his bow for a try. When the archer launched into an arrogant lecture about mana trajectory, he just shrugged and said he'd try it his own way. Lee Si-yoon watched with surprise and anticipation as he stepped to the front lines. He deduced that if the problem was just mana resistance, then he had the perfect solution. He imbued the arrow with his violet fire, just burn it. He declared, firing an arrow crackling with the destructive power of paradox flame. The fire arrow hit the mark, not aiming for the slime's body, but for its very mana resistance capability. A honeycomb-shaped energy shield appeared on the slime's surface, and the paradox flame instantly began to corrode it. The dark purple fire easily incinerated the monster's formidable defenses. The other hunters were speechless, staring in disbelief as the slime's impenetrable mana resistance was completely shattered. Yu Chanseok lamented that although he could cover the entire area with fire, he still wasn't delicate enough to do it safely. He returned the bow to its owner, calmly ordering the archers to resume their attack after his flames weakened slightly. Lee Si-yoon recalled her own battle with him, realizing with shock that his unique skill could erase even intangible concepts, making him a truly unpredictable force. With the slime's main defenses broken, she knew it was her turn to act. With a powerful leap, she lunged, swinging her giant greatsword into the now vulnerable swarm. Her sword cut through them with ease, eliciting cheers from the other hunters as they realized they could finally fight back. Afterward, she shouted for a situation report and learned there was only one slime left, but it was incredibly close to the train. Her eyes widened in horror when she spotted the final, massive threat looming over their heads. The last slime jumped high into the air, preparing to use its enormous weight to crash down and crush the entire carriage. Lee Si-yoon saw no escape. The monster was too large to slice, and they would be crushed before they could even recover the device. While others despaired, Yu Chanseok calmly drew his weapon, acknowledging that the monster's lethal strength came from its sheer size. And thinking to himself that by all rights, defeating such a monster should be near impossible. However, as he raised his weapon, he smirked, knowing the answer was actually incredibly simple. Leaping toward the falling monster and slashing into it, he declared that power meant nothing when its source was turned to ash. Lee Si-yoon was stunned by the overwhelming spectacle that had made the impossible possible. Han Sang-ah was also captivated by the display of incredible strength, a feeling shared by everyone present. As the remaining slime fragments rained down around them, she began to think that perhaps with Yu Chanseok by their side, they actually had a chance. Yu Chanseok caught a remaining solid fragment that had turned into something resembling candy, and remarked that it tasted like cola. With a soft smile, he said he liked cola candy, leaving Lee Si-yoon to secretly wonder if this man might just be the one to save their miserable world. After pushing back the monsters throughout Siberia, the mission train finally headed toward Poland. The team was briefed on the next steps, a 3-day stop in Warsaw to distribute relief supplies and treat the wounded. Lee Si-yoon expressed relief upon hearing that the local Mazurka warlord had promised to cooperate. She then asked about the status of the other warlords, wondering if they would agree to cooperate with the transport mission. Unfortunately, the other warlords had not yet responded, but she ordered the team to continue trying to make contact. The massive armored train finally pulled into the central station of Warsaw, Poland, a city currently at war. Yu Chanseok was astonished by the city's state of ruin. Having heard that Poland was one of the more stable nations, he looked out in shock at the absolute devastation and the number of bodies piled up throughout the station. Noticing a complete lack of trees, he deduced that the citizens were so desperate they had to burn whatever they could find to stay warm. He also observed that Lee Si-yoon and the other veteran hunters were completely unmoved, leaving him to wonder if this grim sight was normal in this land. While observing the tragic scene, a local military officer approached and called his name. Surprised to hear the man speaking Korean, he introduced himself as First Lieutenant Joseph Polansky of the Mazurka warlords. Polansky offered to lead him to a place to rest, guiding him away from the main group. A luxury vehicle provided a stark contrast to the ruined city as it transported the protagonist to his quarters. He correctly speculated that lodging was distributed according to rank when he was taken to a separate area. In the car, Polansky confirmed his status as a freelance hunter and immediately saw an opportunity. He immediately offered him a recruitment pitch, suggesting he stay and work long-term in Poland since he had no ties to Korea. Polansky enticed him with the promise that he would have far more power than he could ever hold back home. Hearing this, the protagonist thought to himself that even with corpses scattered all over outside, he still talked about power so casually that he could provide limousines and champagne. Polansky then explained that unlike in Korea, in this lawless land, hunters were barely bound by any restrictions. The offer turned dark when the officer suggested that if he worked for them, they could provide people for him for the sole purpose of beating them to death. Feeling utterly disgusted by the vile offer, Yu Chanseok barely suppressed the urge to punch him in the face. That evening, he arrived at his assigned quarters. He stepped into the room, not nearly as luxurious as one might expect, and scoffed at the shabby state of this good accommodation, finding it no better than a cheap motel. After a quick check of the bathroom, he admitted that at least it wasn't dirty. However, his disdain deepened when he discovered the meal provided was just instant noodles. Just as he was about to eat his meager meal, he was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Ya Sujeong who greeted him nervously at the door. With flushed cheeks, she shyly asked if he could do her a small favor. A moment later, the sound of running water from the shower echoed in the small apartment. Ya Sujeong let out a sigh of relief as she enjoyed the hot water in his private bathroom. While showering, she apologized and explained that her bathroom was a shared, rusted-out type, but Yu Chanseok casually dismissed it as just a small favor between acquaintances. However, he said he had a question in return. From the sofa, he posed a seemingly simple question: why is all the food they're transporting produced in Korea? She listened intently, her expression serious. She then revealed the harsh truth, stating that it all stemmed from the exploitative foreign policy of the Korean government, and proceeded to explain that policy. Korea imported vast quantities of resources like minerals, fuel, and food from other countries. After taking the best parts for themselves, they sold back the low-quality leftovers to those very same countries, a deal that Yu Chanseok found deeply confusing. The reason they had to accept it was simple. No country dared to anger the South Korean government and lose the protection of their powerful hunters. In a world where basic survival depended on hunter protection, even unreasonable demands from Korea had to be met. The result of this vicious cycle of exploitation was that European nations were forced to buy back low-quality, near-expired food from Korea. His expression hardened as he began to grasp the rotten face of global politics. He then went straight to the point, asking about the specific relief supplies they were transporting, and bluntly asked if they were carrying worthless things like sprouted potatoes. As she stepped out of the bathroom, she prepared to reveal an even more disturbing truth. The relief supplies the train was transporting were actually recycled mixed powder number 65. She clarified that this powder was simply food waste that had been dried and ground up, with the number 65 indicating a 65% recycled organic content. Yu Chanseok was speechless, processing the fact that they were literally bringing garbage as relief aid. Ya Sujeong admitted she knew Korea was perfectly capable of sending real food, and wondered why they were sending this instead. But Yu Chanseok offered a harsh lesson: if they sent truly valuable goods, they would never reach the people who actually needed them. He then posed a rhetorical question: whose mouths would truly valuable food end up in? In a land dominated by corrupt warlords, he explained that any edible food would be hoarded by the warlord or sold for weapons, thereby fueling further conflict. Because this was a world where the strong could do whatever they pleased and good intentions were easily exploited. Finally understanding Lee Si-yoon's warning, Yu Chanseok reached a chilling conclusion. This world was even more rotten and hopeless than the one he had fought in for 20 years. He found it ridiculous that the world was collapsing, yet organizations like Dangun's heirs were actively making the situation worse. This bitter pill of reality only hardened his resolve, and he decided he knew what he had to do now. He approached Ya Sujiang with renewed determination and a terrifying aura, making her jump. With a cold voice and intense focus, he said he had one more question. He asked for the location of the nearest uncooperative warlord, and she replied, Hamburg, Germany. Without a second's hesitation, he set off for Hamburg to deal with the problem himself. German warlord Daniel Lewis was alerted by his soldiers that something serious was happening to their forces. A soldier reported that a Korean hunter named Yu Chanseok was single-handedly tearing through their forces, demanding to know why they wouldn't cooperate. Yu Chanseok paused his assault when the warlord threatened to file an official complaint with the Korea Hunter Association regarding the attack. Ignoring the threat, the protagonist easily subdued one of the warlord's soldiers. Extremely outraged by this blatant lack of respect, the German warlord roared and asked if he wanted to die. Hearing this, Yu Chanseok coldly explained that if one intended to kill, it had to be done properly. He then offered one final, chilling piece of advice forged from a lifetime of war: ruthlessness is the only way to survive. 3 hours earlier, protagonist Yu Chanseok asked for the location of the nearest uncooperative warlord. The scene was set at the Royal Castle of Warsaw, currently being used as the temporary headquarters for their mission. He strode into the castle, ready to speak with Mission Commander Lee Si-yoon, deep in a pile of paperwork. She looked up at Yu Chanseok as he approached and said she was busy. With no time for pleasantries, she impatiently told him to keep his report brief. So he went straight to the point, revealing that the terrorist group known as Dangun's heirs was attempting to control the corrosive rifts. She was shocked, demanding to know why he hadn't shared this vital information from the Tsushima mission earlier. Hearing this, he just silently stared at her with an unimpressed look, implying his deep lack of trust in his current allies. Understanding his unspoken message, she sighed, admitting that he had already made up his mind. However, he bluntly said he couldn't get along with his current partners, calling them strange, and she replied that she was glad he had made a wise decision. Just then, a subordinate announced the arrival of teammate Han Sang-ah. Lee Si-yoon confirmed that he and Han Sang-ah were the ones who had worked together on the Tsushima mission. As Han Sang-ah entered, she remarked that she probably shared his grim assessment of the current situation. Sure enough, Han Sang-ah admitted that the reality in Warsaw was so grim she could barely believe what she was seeing with her own eyes. She even sarcastically asked if South Korea was completely unaware of the dire state of other nations. Hearing this, Lee Si-yoon replied, "That couldn't possibly be the case, could it, lady of the Jumian Corporation?" Han Sang-ah admitted that if she weren't a hunter, she would have lived in ignorance, and expressed her frustration at being unable to help. But Lee Si-yoon coldly cut her off, stating that while the situation in Warsaw was regrettable, it was not their job to fix it. She told Han Sang-ah to focus on their own difficult mission since they had no outside support. Breaking the heavy atmosphere, Yu Chanseok announced that he had a plan to break the stalemate. He confirms that he would negotiate directly with the German warlord, but he would do it his own way. With a grim expression, he voiced his true thoughts. He just wanted to use force to suppress the warlords, which made Lee Si-yoon worry about his methods. However, he admitted, albeit begrudgingly, that public image and diplomacy were preventing a full-scale assault. Frustrated by the bureaucratic red tape, he declared that as an independent hunter, he would take matters into his own hands and handle the negotiations himself. Hearing this, Lee Si-yoon conceded that although this was an extreme method, they had no other choice to push the mission forward. When she asked if he was okay going alone, he promised to resolve the issue before the relief distribution in Poland ended, and told them to be ready to move. Worried, Han Sang-a offered to go with him, but he refused, telling her she should focus on her training. Without wasting any more time, he requested a helicopter. The trip to Germany was estimated to take about an hour. With a confident smile, he said his goodbyes, promising to see them in Germany. The scene shifted, revealing that the warlord Kaiser had severely underestimated Yu Chanseok, believing his mana reserves were minimal. His forces believed there was a fundamental limit to the amount of mana any individual could mobilize at once. They relied on their numbers, thinking they could easily overwhelm a single hunter from South Korea. With their combined numbers and firepower, this assessment seemed entirely logical. However, their plan immediately collapsed when Yu Chanseok effortlessly shattered their forces with a single overwhelming attack. Their plan would have succeeded if he were just an ordinary hunter. Now standing amidst the ruins of the army, Yu Chanseok gave the warlord Daniel Lewis a choice: talk or fight to the end. The German warlord was in a state of shock, unable to understand how Yu Chanseok was still standing when his mana should have been depleted. Daniel then roared in anger at the remaining soldiers, demanding to know why they weren't attacking an opponent who appeared to be exhausted. Following his orders, the panicked soldiers opened fire. But Daniel screamed in horror as his target vanished from sight in a blur of motion. In an instant, Yu Chanseok appeared right behind the warlord, pinning him in a chokehold before he could even react. Holding the stunned warlord hostage, he coldly told him to choose again. Sweating profusely, Daniel desperately threatened him, asking how he would handle the political consequences of this attack. Yu Chanseok just looked at him with a look of contempt, repeating the word consequences. His cold, dismissive gaze said it all, essentially like "I care." Defeated and terrified, the warlord agreed to talk, leading them to a temporary negotiation tent. Inside, Yu Chanseok cautiously took a sip of the drink he was offered. However, he grimaced in disgust and demanded to know what it was because it didn't taste like the cola he was promised. Daniel explained that it was just a drink of a similar color, the easiest thing to find in this wasteland, and tiredly admitted that he hadn't had real cola in years either. Yu Chanseok remarked that the situation in Germany seemed even worse than in Poland, noting the lack of basic amenities like electricity. Afterward, Daniel explained that their military base was a relic from the early days of the Rift outbreaks, now outdated and unmaintained due to dwindling state support. He bitterly described it as a source of shame upon realizing his country's total helplessness. Cutting through the sorrow, Yu Chanseok got straight to the point, asking why the warlord hadn't cooperated with the train's operations. Hearing this, Daniel angrily declared that Germany needed shield generators much more than the UK did because of the massive erosion zone called Ristorante. Yu Chanseok recalled having heard of it, one of the 8 Great Rifts located in Italy, with effects spreading across Europe and North Africa. The warlord insisted that the UK's problem was nothing compared to the threat from Ristorante pushing up from Italy, a threat they were trying to contain at any cost. Yu Chanseok countered with cold logic, explaining that the generators were experimental devices that had to be tested in a stable area, and warned that not cooperating would only delay them getting one. Daniel smirked, declaring that this wasn't a negotiation but just Yu Chanseok making unilateral demands. The protagonist replied with his patience wearing thin, "If you realize that, shut up and cooperate." Daniel retorted, asking why he was acting so arrogant when he had no other options. Yu Chanseok reminded the warlord that he had already seen the violent option. To emphasize, he crushed the glass in his hand, saying that wasn't the option he recommended choosing. But Yu Chanseok made it clear that his only role was to be the matchmaker so the warlord could talk to Lee Si-yoon. Completely intimidated, Daniel asked what cooperation required. When the warlord asked if the Candy Queen had sent him, he admitted he was acting on his own because he was too frustrated with the delays. Daniel sighed, realizing the famously cautious Lee Si-yoon would never be so reckless, and finally agreed to contact her. But when Daniel told him to leave, Yu Chanseok flatly refused, declaring he would stay here and explained that he didn't trust the warlord not to go back on his word, leaving Daniel sputtering with indignation. To pay for his lodging, he placed a bright-colored candy into his hand. He revealed it was cola-flavored candy he'd gotten from a slime, leading Daniel to bitterly remark that South Koreans really had it easy. Yu Chanseok stared as the warlord lamented that in this war-torn land, they didn't even know what tomorrow would bring. The scene then cut to the royal castle in Warsaw, where Lee Si-yoon asked Yu Chanseok about his future plans. She clarified the question, "After this mission ends, do you have any thoughts?" He pondered for a moment, admitting that witnessing the true, catastrophic state of the world had changed his perspective. Glancing out of the tent at the now cooperative warlord, he thought to himself that Daniel would soon thank him. With new resolve, he declared his new goal, to shatter all the rifts and save the world so that one day everyone could drink real cola again. The scene then flashed back to a square in Warsaw, where a large crowd of hungry refugees had gathered to receive rations. A mechanical soldier called out for the next person in the long, desperate line. The so-called relief was just a thin, bland soup, barely enough to count as a meal. A refugee stared in silent outrage at the pathetic ration he received. Finally, he exploded in anger, questioning how they were expected to survive on such meager soup, but was immediately shouted back into line by armed soldiers. Just then, the soldiers received their orders. Suppression of civilians was permitted, authorizing the use of force. The angry man accused the South Korean military of being no better than the government thugs they had tried to run away from. However, his disobedience only earned him a cold gun barrel as a soldier aimed directly at him. The soldier fired and the crowd screamed in horror, believing the man had just been executed for a simple complaint. However, another soldier clarified that they were only using non-lethal salt bullets. Another soldier threatened the man lying on the ground, warning that any further disturbance would meet the same fate. But realizing the soldiers weren't allowed to use lethal force, the starving crowd began to grow bolder. Before long, hungry refugees rushed the supply truck, overwhelming the guards and forcing them to call for reinforcements. Back in the present, the mission's administrative team was in chaos trying to control the relief situation. An official reported an increasing number of casualties and cases of fake ration tickets, emphasizing the severe shortage of manpower. Amidst the chaos, Lee Si-yoon was urgently informed that she had a message from Kaiser Warlord's territory. On the phone, a look of relief spread across her face as she congratulated Yu Chanseok on his successful negotiation. The official report confirmed German warlord Daniel Lewis had agreed to cooperate with their mission. The scene shifted to the ruins of a city in Hamburg, Kaiser Warlord's territory. There, Daniel Lewis greeted Lee Si-yoon, commenting on the odd fellow she had sent to force his cooperation. After the agreement was signed, she officially thanked the warlord for his compliance. Meanwhile, Yu Chanseok was keeping watch over the city from a high vantage point. He continued his patrol, silently observing the dilapidated architecture. Suddenly, Han Sang-ah flew up to his position, startling him and asking what he was doing. He explained he was scouting the perimeter, and she informed him that Lee Si-yoon was looking for him. Just as he agreed to go down, his hypersensitive senses detected that something was wrong. His eyes caught an unusual glimmer of light, flashing from a distant clock tower. The sudden flash also startled Han Sang-ah, as she hadn't expected it. Immediately sensing the threat, he jumped off the roof and lunged forward, leaving a surprised Han Sang-ah behind. He ran through a deserted building, sprinting toward the watcher's position. Upon reaching the clock tower, he confirmed that someone had definitely been watching him from this very spot, and reasoned that his target had used mana to hide and escape after being discovered. Focusing his senses, he began tracking the faint traces of mana left behind. A faint swirling trail of mana led him forward. To his surprise, he realized the mana trail led straight up to the ceiling. Wary of traps, he immediately looked up and prepared his spear for an attack from above. Just then, a sword slashed through the ceiling, but he was prepared, blocking the ambush. The protagonist commented on the attacker's unusual method of tearing through space to ambush him. The mysterious attacker, Seo Joham, also expressed surprise that his opponent could find his hiding spot so quickly. He was a member of the terrorist group Heirs of Dangun. He formally introduced himself, stating his intention to stop Yu Chanseok. Yu Chanseok dryly remarked on the opponent's strange attire, a traditional hanbok and what looked like a cane sword. Seo Joham calmly corrected him. He revealed his weapon was the Calamus sword and then unleashed a series of slashes. The attacks shattered the surroundings, but Yu Chanseok managed to dodge them. However, he gritted his teeth, barely blocking the relentless onslaught. The two warriors exchanged a series of blows, with the protagonist pushed onto the defensive. He skillfully dodged another powerful sword strike. Just then, he moved and attacked with strange, unpredictable movements. However, he was frustrated to realize that even though his blows should have landed, his opponent dodged all of them. Seo Joham smugly mocked him, telling him to try a little harder. But as the battle continued, Yu Chanseok said, "Don't talk," and prepared for an attack. However, the opponent's sharp eyes caught the faint purple mana glowing around his feet. As Yu Chanseok attacked, Seo Joham's body shimmered, appearing to split into several clones. Yu Chanseok's spear passed through one of the images harmlessly, confirming it was just an illusion. The real Seo Joham appeared behind him, confidently boasting that his opponent would never be able to touch him. Just then, Yu Chanseok's eyes narrowed in focus as he realized he was about to be attacked. However, he still managed to dodge the slashes. Taking a defensive stance, he calmly said he had realized two things about his opponent's technique, then smirked, revealing his first deduction. "You're using clones." He then explained that his speed and strength increased every time the clones merged back together. After resolving the first part of the puzzle, he prepared to reveal the second, more critical piece. His opponent, however, remained extremely confident, believing Yu Chanseok couldn't do anything, but Yu Chanseok knew for a fact that he was completely mistaken. The confrontation between Yu Chanseok and the terrorist Seo Joham continued on the streets of Hamburg. The protagonist analyzed his opponent's technique, noting the sudden increase in speed after the clones merged. Confident in his phase-shifting ability, Seo Joham arrogantly promised to end the battle with his next attack. But our hero just smirked, realizing that the terrorist's phase-shifting technique probably hadn't been dealt with before, and his luck had just run out. "Of all people, he had to cross paths with me," he thought to himself, remembering a similar enemy from the past. In a flashback to his time as the hero Lee Han-seok, he remembered fighting monsters with the exact same phase-shifting ability. Creatures called phantoms had proven to be a major challenge for his team. His companion, a knight, had cried out in desperation that their attacks were passing straight through the monster's body, and he could only watch helplessly as another phantom swooped down. However, Lee Han-seok had corrected his comrade, explaining that phantoms weren't invisible, but were using mana to shift their bodies into another dimension. The knight angrily demanded to know how to counter such an ability. He explained that skills like this only activate at the exact moment of an attack, perfectly matching the speed of the strike. Therefore, to overcome them, one must be prepared to hit that exact timing. The key, he realized, was simply to calibrate his own attack speed to bypass their defensive window. Back in the present, Yu Chanseok put this knowledge into practice. He adjusted his attack to match Seo Joham's rhythm and landed a strike. The terrorist was completely caught off guard when the blow connected precisely at the moment he landed. He dropped to his knees. He could only stare in disbelief, wondering how his opponent had managed to position himself so accurately to deliver that strike. "What the hell even are you, Yu Chanseok?" the defeated terrorist thought as the spear appeared behind him. With one final decisive movement, the protagonist prepared to end the fight. Seo Joham desperately prepared to dodge. However, Yu Chanseok suddenly stopped when a massive explosion rocked the entire surrounding area. Even he turned his head, surprised by the scale of the blast. Right then, Seo Joham said calmly, "Looks like I'm still the luckier one." But his victory joy was interrupted by an emergency call from Han Sang-ah, telling him to stop and return immediately. She dropped a bombshell. A sarin gas bomb had been dropped on the outskirts of Hamburg. Sarin gas, a deadly nerve agent that can paralyze the nervous system with even the smallest amount. As a banned weapon, its release would instantly turn the affected area into a living hell. Yu Chanseok received the grim news calmly. Understood. Wasting no time, he declared, I'm on my way back. And he began a frantic race back to the train. While leaping across rooftops, he questioned the terrorists' strategy, wondering why they didn't attack the city directly. On the phone, Han Sang-ah reported the military's grim calculation. The toxic gas would cover Hamburg in just 15 minutes. With the relief supplies in danger, the train would make an emergency departure in the next 5 minutes. She added a crucial detail. Lee Si-yoon was currently restraining a lone enemy. In a moment of clarity, Yu Chanseok realized the terrorists' true goal. The entire sarin gas attack was just a diversion to draw their most powerful asset, Lee Si-yoon, away from the train. When he asked who Lee Si-yoon was fighting, she said the opponent was the mysterious archer they had once encountered on Tsushima Island. Yu Chanseok grimaced, knowing full well the massive threat that Captain represented. The battle between Lee Si-yoon and the archer was incredibly chaotic. Nevertheless, Lee Si-yoon held her ground against the relentless assault. With a determined smile, she slammed her massive greatsword into the ground, cracking the earth all around her. The captain countered, drawing his bow back as it crackled with energy. He fired an incredibly powerful, blinding arrow that exploded upon impact. Even Lee Si-yoon was stunned by the terrifying power of the attack. Even so, she prepared to counter, gathering her strength to face the incoming volley of arrows. Meanwhile, on the train, staff announced that the relief supplies were fully loaded. At the very last second, the final members scrambled in a panic to board the evacuating train. An official confirmed all personnel were aboard and gave the final order to depart. As the train began to move, the hunters anxiously watched the distant battle, noting that even a powerhouse like Lee Si-yoon was being pushed back. Suddenly, a thunderous sound echoed out. Everyone turned around, startled. It was Yu Chanseok, who casually announced that he'd barely made it in time, and immediately reprimanded the hunters. He told them not to just sit there with their mouths hanging open while Lee Si-yoon was risking her life. The hunters fell silent at his sharp rebuke. He warned that with Lee Si-yoon separated from the mission, a major attack was inevitable and they needed to be prepared. The hunters silently followed him, advancing to the roof of the train. Someone relayed the order, instructing all remaining personnel to concentrate near the shield generator carriage. Back in the ruined city, Lee Si-yoon stood ready amidst the rubble. She assessed her opponent, acknowledging his incredible skill and wondering if he was the leader of the terrorist group. Even the captain complimented the 10th-ranked hunter, impressed that she had managed to block all of his attacks. Just then, she confidently said, "Sorry for ruining your plan." But the captain claimed her confidence was misguided, replying in a cold voice, "Don't worry." He clarified that his plan was never to defeat her, but simply to separate her from the train. With her trapped behind, a massive terrorist army lay in ambush and their victory was already sealed. The mission train sped along the tracks, now extremely vulnerable. The lead locomotive charged forward, completely unaware of the ambush waiting ahead. From a nearby building, another member of Dangun's heirs, Seo Yeonju, smiled as she confirmed the train was right on schedule. On the mission train, a hunter reported detecting a suspicious group on the bridge ahead. The terrorists led by Seo Yeonju and Lee Hyun revealed themselves, ready to strike. Immediately, a hunter ordered everyone to stay on high alert, shouting for all hunters to prepare for battle. Just then, Seo Yeonju and Lee Hyun led the charge themselves, jumping from the bridge to attack the moving train. A wave of terrorists landed and immediately engaged in fierce, close-quarters combat with the train's defensive force. Amidst the chaos, Seo Yeonju calmly introduced herself to her primary target. Yu Chanseok, slightly surprised by her directness, he asked if she knew who he was. She confirmed, saying the order from her superiors was to capture him alive. However, she added that she personally wasn't the type to take prisoners, especially when the elders weren't around to stop her. With a sinister smile, she threatened that if she accidentally killed him during the fight, she'd just say, "Oh well." Nevertheless, he calmly identified her unusual weapon as a geomungo, a traditional Korean zither. As she prepared to strike, he analyzed her move. She then unleashed a devastating sonic shockwave from the instrument, aimed straight at Yu Chanseok and the surrounding hunters. Quickly deducing her power, Yu Chanseok dismissed the sonic attack as a mere nuisance. Nearby, her teammate Lee Hyun prepared for his part of the attack, wielding a sword and a set of bronze bells. Yu Chanseok identified his equipment as bronze bells on an iron pole, immediately understanding his role in the coordinated attack. Right then, Lee Hyun performed a ritualistic dance, creating a powerful buff that amplified their attack strength. Now both were ready for their powerful combination attack. Yet Yu Chanseok coldly observed the coordinated assault, as he had already seen through their strategy. He realized that Lee Hyun's dance wasn't just a simple ritual. Sure enough, he correctly identified it as a powerful buff skill supporting the initial sonic wave. The terrifying power of the attack left Han Sang-ah and another hunter completely stunned. She remarked that the shockwave was so loud it could be heard from a great distance and worried that Yu Chanseok might be in grave danger. But the protagonist remained completely unfazed, simply plugging his ears and bluntly dismissing her musical performance as absolute trash. Seo Yeonju smirked at his defiance, boasting that sound couldn't be blocked and he should just struggle until he died. Considering her challenge, he thought to himself, she said unblockable then. With a confident smile, he simply asked, "Then how about this?" He unleashed his paradox flame not to create fire, but to incinerate the very concept of sound. Caught off guard by the sudden silence, Seo Yeonju tried to shout instructions for the next attack. To their horror, both she and Lee Hyun realized they had been completely silenced. Yu Chanseok confirmed his strategy was a success. Saying it worked as expected, he mocked the two now helpless terrorists, nodding that they had no experience fighting on a silent battlefield. In a fit of rage, she searched for him, dismissing his ability as a pathetic trick. Still confident in their 2-on-1 advantage, she planned a surprise attack, ready to sacrifice one person to win. But her confidence shattered when she saw the look of sheer agony on Lee Hyun's face. The terrifying truth hit her when she realized she was the one being ambushed, as Yu Chanseok had appeared right behind her. In an instant, he delivered a devastating blow and sliced through her. A flashback showed Lee Hyun recalling the original plan to capture Yu Chanseok alive. The plan was so desperate that they were willing to accept if one of the two died. But their plan had completely failed against the protagonist's overwhelming strength. Back in the present, she screamed for her teammate to stop when he sealed Yu Chanseok with magic sealing. Severely wounded, she could only stare in horror, asking why. Lee Hyun desperately poured in energy, trying to make the seal more secure. But she angrily reminded him that she told him not to use the seal before subduing him. However, he argued that he had no other choice. Believing he had successfully contained Yu Chanseok and revealed that his seal was designed to restrain even high-ranking hunters like Lee Si-yoon and Yu Chanseok. But from within the supposedly unbreakable seal, a terrifying dark figure with glowing eyes emerged behind him. Panicking, Lee Hyun realized there was no escape and screamed at his teammate to take the shield generator and run. But right at that moment, Yu Chanseok stabbed him from behind, shattering the seal. Coughing up blood, Lee Hyun was shocked, unable to understand how anyone could break his seal. Yu Chanseok now stood over them, mockingly asking who gave them permission to leave. Admitting the protagonist's strength was beyond imagination, Lee Hyun decided that survival was more important than the shield generator. He roared to his teammate Run Yeonju. Yu Chanseok calmly challenged her to try. He then offered the same chilling challenge to the wounded terrorist. Cornered, Lee Hyun gritted his teeth and agreed to leave the shield generator behind. With a threatening gaze, Yu Chanseok issued his final warning, "Try running." Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the aftermath of another battle at the Hamburg Central Station. Lee Si-yoon, wounded but determined, remained standing after a fierce battle with the person known only as the captain. Her opponent unexpectedly decided to end the fight, casually saying, "That's enough for today." Surprised by his sudden withdrawal, she could only ask, "What?" The captain complimented her, saying her existence was proof of the superiority of the Korean race. She scoffed, asking if he truly believed in that pseudo-historical Hwanguk theory. This theory was an extremist belief in a primitive Korean empire that supposedly ruled Eurasia some 60,000 years ago. This was the ideological foundation the terrorist group Dangun's heirs used to recruit followers. However, in a shocking admission, the captain flatly denied believing in the theory himself and called the belief insane, which left Lee Si-yoon confused as to why he supported it. The man revealed his cynical philosophy: it didn't matter if he believed it or not, as long as his followers did. An image of Yu Chanseok fighting flashed by, representing the power that such belief could inspire. He explained that their faith would compel them to participate in his grand dream, because faith needs no evidence. His chilling monologue ended with, "You just need to believe," before he vanished. Lee Si-yoon stood alone amidst the ruins, her opponent having teleported away. She glanced around the devastated battlefield, processing the strange and inconclusive end to the fight. Leaning heavily on her massive greatsword, she tried to regain her balance after the intense battle. Finally alone, she let out a weary sigh. Returning to the protagonist as he contemplated the squinty-eyed one's escape, he realized the sheer ruthlessness of the terrorists. The man had severed his own flesh just to break free. As he considered giving chase, an urgent radio call from the command center interrupted him. He was informed that they had lost contact with Commander Lee Si-yoon, and in her absence, a new order was being issued. He was stunned to be suddenly tasked with temporary command over the entire relief train mission. Just then, a group of terrorists lunged from behind, screaming, "Die, you bastard!" However, he skillfully dodged the attack, and with a swift counterstrike, he kicked the assailant away. As the next one attacked, he took him down with a powerful, brutal kick before the man could even touch him. Then, with a quick and clean slash of his blade, he cut the last one down. After defeating them, he stepped into his new role, immediately taking command and issuing his first order: depart immediately, leaving the missing commander behind. He acknowledged that despite receiving opposition from Lee Si-yoon's guild, he made the difficult decision not to stop the train for her. Even though he knew this might damage future relations, he remained steadfast in his decision without regret. He justified his choice by reaffirming that the mission to deliver relief supplies had to take priority over any individual. However, deep down, he expressed belief in her strength, hoping she would return safely. But his thoughts were interrupted by a panicked assistant. The assistant panted, while the protagonist calmly asked what was happening. He smirked, confirming that he knew she would be fine, just as the assistant announced that Commander Lee Si-yoon had returned. And right at that moment, Lee Si-yoon returned dramatically, appearing heavily wounded but still alive, proving his belief that she wouldn't die so easily. While recovering in the medical bay, she confirmed that she wasn't angry, saying he had done the right thing by assuming the temporary command she had entrusted to him. He then asked about her cold demeanor, curious why she wasn't more emotional about the situation. Hearing this, she admitted that she was distracted, constantly replaying the battle with the powerful archer in her head, and confessed that even she couldn't see a clear path to victory against this formidable new enemy. She then humbly admitted that if the captain hadn't gone easy on her, she wouldn't have had the strength to walk. However, Yu Chanseok practically stated that sudden realizations were just myths, and they would have to fight to earn their strength. With a look of determination, she agreed with his assessment of their current weaknesses. Changing the subject, she asked about the mission's status, and he confirmed that the relief distribution was proceeding smoothly. He smirked, clarifying that it was proceeding smoothly his way, alluding to his characteristically unconventional methods. He then presented the next step. Once the supplies for the UK were loaded, she would be responsible for transporting the shield generator. Realizing the implication, she asked if this meant he intended to stay in the UK. He confirmed his plan, saying he believed the heirs of Dangun would certainly attack again, and revealed his plan to stay in Britain to train before facing a new challenge on his way back to South Korea. He then shocked her by announcing his intention to conquer the Tier 1 rift of Bratz, the refrigerator. She was stunned by his casual decision, remembering that even her own first Tier 1 rift had been incredibly difficult. However, he made it clear that he would be bringing Han Sang-ah along, leading a frustrated Lee Si-yoon to call them both insane. Refusing to be left behind, the injured commander declared that she would also stay to provide support, and explained the nature of Bratz, a place whose rift was considered one of the weaker Tier 1 threats. She then said, but even so, a Tier 1 is still a Tier 1, and reminded him of his grand declaration to shatter all rifts and save the world. She then challenged him to hold on to that belief after experiencing the true horror of a Tier 1 rift. With a confident smile, he accepted the challenge, adding that he had a favor to ask of her. Meanwhile, at a sprawling private mansion in the UK, Han Sang-ah asked if it was okay for them to be training so far from their mission target. The protagonist brushed off her worries, saying that since they were a rapid response team, their location didn't matter, and explained that as long as they complied with their contract by reporting hourly, their superiors wouldn't interfere. She then handed him a bucket of elixirs she had prepared for him, nodding that they were in short supply. He smiled, satisfied with the amount of elixir she had managed to obtain for his training. To her surprise, he swallowed all the elixir vials at once, saying it would be less bitter that way. Now fully recharged, he declared it was time for her training to begin. However, his unconventional training tool was nothing but dozens of trays of eggs, leaving her completely baffled. In his left hand, he held a regular, non-mana-infused egg for comparison. To demonstrate, he held an egg in his right hand and channeled a stream of mana into it. She watched intently as he manipulated the mana inside the fragile shell. After cracking both eggs, he revealed the results. The yolk and white of the mana-infused egg had been perfectly blended inside the unbroken shell. She immediately grasped the significance, realizing this was a difficult exercise to train fine mana control. He couldn't help but tease her for her rare moment of quick understanding, assigning her the task of mastering this technique as homework to improve her poor mana control. Eager to start, he was surprised when she turned to leave, thinking the training would begin immediately. At this, he clarified that the egg exercise was just homework for her free time, then asked what she thought their real training would be. He then mysteriously told her to recall the lessons from their first training session. As he said that real training always begins with real combat, Lee Si-yoon appeared ready for a fight. Han Sang-ah was stunned to realize their training was a 2-on-1 match against a top 10 hunter in the world. The scene then shifted to a dark, secret laboratory where someone was humming a tune. The defeated terrorist Kim Jae-hyun was tied tightly to a table. As he slowly regained consciousness, the scientist Dr. Seo Gongwoo greeted the man who had just woken up. Kim Jae-hyun sleepily asked where he was, and the doctor explained he had been moved from the hospital to this private lab. Still tied and gagged, he demanded to know why he had been brought here. The doctor was silent for a moment. Afterward, Dr. Seo jokingly remarked that he brought this near-dead man here just to save him from the boredom of staring at a hospital ceiling. Despite being helpless, the prisoner glared with pure murderous intent, wishing death upon his captor. But the doctor shocked him by saying he wouldn't even be able to breathe without the mana respirator. So he shouldn't overexert himself, adding, "Anyway, I'm not the one you should be angry at." The doctor then revealed his true purpose. He had succeeded in a new experiment and had an offer for him. With a sinister smile, Dr. Seo leaned down and offered the helpless young terrorist a chance for revenge. 1 month after the final encounter with the terrorists, Han Sang-ah's grueling mana control training continued. Despite her efforts, she dropped yet another egg, a crucial part of Yu Chanseok's training regimen. Frustrated, she admitted that she still hadn't mastered the delicate control needed to cook an egg with her own power. But Yu Chanseok cut her off, announcing that her 5-minute break was over and it was time to continue. Although exhausted, she tightened her resolve and agreed to continue the arduous training session. A perfectly fried egg sat on a plate, a silent testament to the difficult training she was enduring. Afterward, the team engaged in a 2-on-1 sparring session with Lee Si-yoon, with the dual goals of becoming stronger and improving their teamwork. Yu Chan-seok and Han Sang-ah coordinated rhythmic attacks aimed at the world's 10th-ranked hunter. The primary objective of this intense training session was simple: to make both of them stronger. Yu Chan-seok observed closely, guiding his disciple through the high-level sparring. As Han Sang-ah and Lee Si-yoon clashed in a flurry of blows, the students' new skills were put to the test. Pushed back by Lee Si-yoon's power, Han Sang-ah exclaimed that she hadn't even managed to land a single hit on her. Lee Si-yoon kept up the relentless pressure, never giving her disciples a moment to catch their breath. Then Yu Chan-seok joined in, his attack timed perfectly to create an opening. Lee Si-yoon was stunned when Yu Chan-seok successfully disarmed her, knocking her greatsword away and immediately ordering Han Sang-ah to take advantage of the opening to strike. This revealed the second objective: improving the coordination between the two of them. Lee Si-yoon's eyes widened as she anticipated Han Sang-ah's next move. Han Sang-ah unleashed a powerful surge of electricity, showcasing her improved control and strength. Lee Si-yoon impressively admitted she hadn't expected to be disarmed, acknowledging her student's progress. She complimented Han Sang-ah, nodding that she had improved immensely over the past month of training. However, she playfully added that she still needed to teach the girl how to keep a better grip on her own weapon. Suddenly, the training session was interrupted by an urgent call from Lee Si-yoon's communication device. The caller reported a surprise attack from the heirs of Dangun and noted that a strange black smoke was surrounding the shield generator. Faced with a call for urgent support, Yu Chan-seok and Lee Si-yoon exchanged a grim, determined look. Without a word, the team rushed to the scene of the attack. In the car, Yu Chan-seok complained about Han Sang-ah's reckless driving, to which she replied that she was the only one with a license. As they were tossed around in the back seat, a nauseous Lee Si-yoon begged her to drive more carefully. Suddenly, Yu Chan-seok's eyes widened in horror when a figure appeared before them. A grotesque, purple-skinned creature slammed into the windshield, bringing the car to an abrupt halt. The impact shattered the glass and sent the car spinning violently, while Han Sang-ah panicked, thinking she had just hit a person. Yu Chan-seok calmly told her that wasn't the case. He clarified that the attacker was definitely not human, as the monster's form slowly stood up. The creature stood up and declared, "Found you." As the monster's face became clearly visible, Yu Chan-seok realized it was the defeated terrorist, Kim Jae-hyun. In a dark vision, the monstrous Kim Jae-hyun whispered the name of his target, Yu Chan-seok. Now fully revealed, the disgustingly mutated Kim Jae-hyun mocked Yu Chan-seok for the sacrifices he had made to obtain this power. Filled with pure hatred, the mutated Kim Jae-hyun lunged with blinding speed. His devastating attack tore through a nearby building after Yu Chan-seok narrowly dodged it. Kim Jae-hyun was stunned that his opponent had managed to dodge the attack. He acknowledged Yu Chan-seok's durability, muttering that he knew it wouldn't be that easy. Sure enough, Yu Chan-seok emerged from the dust completely unscathed, ready to face the hateful enemy. He was confused, wondering how Kim Jae-hyun could move, let alone fight, after he had burned away all of his muscle strength. He quickly changed his plans, deciding to handle Kim Jae-hyun himself while sending Han Sang-ah to the port and Lee Si-yoon to the terrorist headquarters. Lee Si-yoon casually remarked that the monster seemed particularly enraged at him. With a dead-serious look, she told him to make sure he finished the job. Since the car was wrecked, she told a panicked Han Sang-ah that they had to get out and run on foot. As the two women left, Kim Jae-hyun jeeringly remarked how funny it was to see the great Lee Si-yoon running away. However, he vowed to hunt them all down and tear them apart for what they had done to him, but his hateful gaze was fixed squarely on Yu Chan-seok, declaring him the first to die. Unmoved, Yu Chan-seok smirked at the threat, comparing his opponent's power level to that of the weak Incheon Batman monster. This enraged Kim Jae-hyun. He recalled how he had sworn revenge every day since Yu Chan-seok had left him crippled, and roared that his only remaining purpose was to inflict the same pain on the man who had ruined him. With a final declaration that he would tear him to pieces, he lunged at Yu Chan-seok for the first time. Yu Chan-seok coldly appraised his opponent, admitting to himself that this time might actually be a little dangerous. Meanwhile, Han Sang-ah reached the port and found it eerily silent, with bodies everywhere. Observing the bloody scene, she wondered if the hunters stationed here had been completely wiped out. Unbeknownst to her, a group of figures was watching from the rooftops as she moved cautiously between the shipping containers. Suddenly, her eyes widened as she sensed danger. The figures leaped from the air, and as they landed, the ground shattered. A masked bandit appeared, surprised to find a survivor amidst the carnage. Before long, more bandits surrounded their target, identifying her as the wealthy young lady of the KY conglomerate. The leader of the thugs smirked, declaring a plan to collect a massive ransom for Ares. Completely unflustered, Han Sang-ah nonchalantly wondered if these three bandits had managed to wipe out the entire port by themselves, before critiquing their redundant choice of words. She playfully informed the would-be kidnappers that their choice of address sounded very forced. She then brazenly suggested that the KY conglomerate young lady or even the KY conglomerate bitch would also work, leaving the bandits stunned. Her bold reaction caused one bandit to burst out laughing. He mocked her, calling her a village idiot instead of a stuck-up wealthy lady, and said he had originally intended to demand a ransom, but seeing her condition, he doubted they'd get full value. They lunged at her, promising to slowly play with their captive prey.